But my beats, they are hard.
Hello. Welcome to a live edition of the BCSN. Well, wait a minute. It's the BCSN SportsWrap and Dr. Kenyatta Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Bryan, AD, and Doc is in the building. He's there somewhere.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, doing well, Doc. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. Trying to figure out my camera here. I never had this one before.
All right, see, I thought it was just me.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. The Dean has stepped into the building.
Good to be with you, gentlemen.
Hey, man, this is me and Drew's favorite time of the year, boy. Come on and talk some basketball. I don't know where
y'all get fired up. I know the first time people may not realize that, and some will get this because they've been with us all this time. When we took advantage of the additional time we had during COVID.
Yeah,
we made up some tournaments and we did all kinds of good stuff then.
Yeah, definitely. How the extra, I don't know, the less of an hour affect you? I know it messed with me yesterday. How did it do you?
I needed my hour.
Me too.
I'll just say that.
I hear you. Well, you guys, anybody joining us that's come in, you're gonna get a good dose of basketball today. As the show title says, it's the MEAC SWAC basketball preview show. We're going to break down the women's and the men's brackets in the MEAC and the SWAC. Drew, our resident MEAC-ish fan that he is, got his MEAC shirt on.
He got a throwback on there, I see.
Right. Which logo is that? Is that like 3 generations ago, Drew?
This is the one that I paid for. That's the version of it is because I made my
nation. I see you part of the nation. That's new.
Yeah, well,
we grew up in the MEAC.
Always MEAC.
Yeah, we grew up in the MEAC.
I'm not saying this as any umbrage. I think it's a great deal. I went up to the MEAC tournament last year, and until I've gotten a new role and new title in terms of interim dean, it precludes some of my travel as I, line some things up will make it much more difficult this year. I do have a plane ticket, but it's looking like I have to cancel it for later in the week. And my plan last year, I actually did 2 days of the MEAC tournament and flew to Birmingham and did the final 2 days or that evening and the full day on Saturday of SWAC. So I've crossed both lanes. I've worked with the commissioner up there previously. She's welcomed me in and likes a lot of the ideas that I put on the table, and she's doing some great things. And obviously, I work with Lynn Thompson, is kind of who brought me to the table as he transitioned from, as you know, being the VP of Athletics at Bethune-Cookman, as they moved over to the SWAC, and he finished his career there in terms of that role. He's working with the MEAC in terms of a consulting role, but he's heavily involved in a lot of directions in terms of almost a part-time person at the MEAC, for lack of better words. So, no, I get it. There are a lot of great things with MEAC, and from a long time ago, I've been covering HBCU just like AD Drew is home in terms of making sure we get our mid-major news out for the SIAC as well as getting the CIAA. We like to think we do that inside the HBCU Sports Lab, bigger than the SWAC. Although our roots are in the SWAC, we've covered HBCU sports. So this is right up my alley. I love what you all have decided to do. This should be fun.
Yes, indeed.
Only thing I'm gonna say about Dr. Thompson, Dr. Cavil, is as a Rattler, we respect Dr. Thompson. We love Dr. Thompson, but we glad he ain't ever throwing anymore. That's all we gonna say, because we don't have to worry about them finding the right coach to beat us anymore.
Say no more. Say no more.
Hey,
some of the young folks say less.
Yeah, there's something to be said about being somewhere for 30 years and really putting down roots and watching that program grow the way he grew it, and definitely probably left it better than when he got it. So
he found it.
Right. Let me ask this question. So Doc, did you make it to, I know you went to the CIAA. You did not make it to the SIAC.
No, I was planning to join Drew down there. He had negotiated all kinds of things for me just in case I got down there.
Gotcha.
But again, it's been hectic the last couple of weeks. So I'm glad I was able to sneak out just in time to at least get the first one in terms of the CIAA. So that was huge. But now I can officially check all 4 of the major 5 HBCU conferences. I want to make sure we do a better job with that, particularly with the new naming of the GCAC, the HBCU Athletic Conferences. Drew kind of broke that news insider to us. We couldn't share it. He broke that inside the group. I was hearing that it was coming and kind of went back and forth with him, and we stumbled upon that about a couple of months ago, really going back to November. And we had a great time deciding and talking about those new programs that she was inviting in as part of the other celebration they had. But yes, so now I can check off that I've attended all 4 of the 5 HBCU conferences. That is obviously the SWAC. You heard about the MEAC last year. This year I did the CIAA, and I've actually did CIAA twice. I did it when it was in Charlotte, and then I went back this year to catch it in Baltimore. And I've done the SIAC. When I did the SIAC, it was in Birmingham.
One of my goals is, I don't know, whenever I do decide to get out of high school coaching, is to try to get to all 5. Now, I don't know if strategically how to make all that happen. And I don't know if I've got the black card like you got, Doc, but I mean, I got to try to find a way to get to all 5. I'd like to do all 5 in 1 year. Maybe that's a bit ambitious. Maybe I should try to just get to maybe 2 or 3 in a year. I don't know. That's just me.
We can check with Drew. He's pretty close. He almost did all this year except for being able to get it to CIAA. It helps him because of the area he is in. You essentially have 3
of them, right,
in that area. So that he knocks them off real quick. If he can find a way to double up and double dip and get up north a little bit, it's a done deal.
But here's what's interesting about that. Like I say, you got the 3 that I could drive to: SIAC, SWAC, HBCU AC. I'm gonna go ahead and start using it. Dr. Baker Barnes. There's a commuter flight from where I live that flies directly into Baltimore.
Oh, nice.
For a very inexpensive rate. Because I've had to go to DC a couple of times, and I've flown into Baltimore and drove back down, drove over to DC. So I know of that one. The only thing I gotta do is figure out how to get to Norfolk for a very reasonable rate without having to, do 20 layovers and all that kind of stuff. And then I've got it lit, man.
And you let me know if you find out. Norfolk, for all the good things they do in Norfolk, and I give them a lot of credit. I love the fact Southwest flies in there, but it does not fly in there directly. So you're going to have to stop. Usually, the best times is Baltimore, oddly enough, stopping in Baltimore. So I tried to look at whether I was going to do Birmingham and then Norfolk, or Norfolk and then Birmingham. And the way it's set up, it was easier to fly in. You do the one stop in Baltimore, get there about a half a day. It gives you the evening games, a full day. and then the morning games, and then you're gonna have to fly out. You can't fly from there directly to Birmingham, so you need to figure that out. So it's a nice exercise to kind of check off the bucket list as a media person to say they cover it. But you're gonna have to understand that you're not gonna be able to do it very easily between the two, and you're gonna have to pick. You want 2 days, and then do the other 2 days because obviously they're going on simultaneous.
Right. Let me say hello to all of our friends that have joined in and are watching us on Facebook. We have the Black College Sports Network or the BCSN SportsWrap page. Maybe you're watching us on YouTube via the Jericho Broadcast Network's YouTube page. Say hello to our people in the chat room. Maybe you're watching us on our BCSN YouTube page, or you could be watching us on X via the Black College Sports Network. Hello to all of you watching on X. Come on into the chat room if you're so inclined to chat with us. And also those on Instagram. I want to say hello to everybody on Instagram. Make sure you're following the Black College Sports Network at MyBCSN1, the number 1. That's where you can get not only our show that Drew and I do on Sunday, Doc's show on Tuesday and Thursday evening, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, the Carlos Brown show on every Saturday afternoon, noon Eastern, 11 a.m., and the O&G Strike Zone Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, and, all kinds of good stuff. And coming up a little later in the second half of the show, I believe we have Charles Bishop is going to be joining us. The other half of the the two-thirds of the inside the HBCU Sports Lab crew. And then also
some people say the way Mike is always on the side.
You said it right.
But I won't.
You said it right, Bryan. It's the other half.
Hey,
come on back home, Mike. Come on back home.
Hey, it's all good because I still see Mike in the logo. Mike's name is still in the logo.
Yeah, he hadn't been fired. He hadn't been dismissed.
Yeah, he's still in the logo.
Lab. He hasn't been suspended from the institution at this time.
We love you, Mike. We love you, Mike. One of the biggest regret is that we never clipped Mike's Valley. We talk about
yeah. Don't worry. He don't stop. I don't understand why he's a glutton for punishment. He will not stop. So let's say it again so you can clip it.
That thing went viral, and I'm telling you, especially when Valley won their first and only game of the season, boy, I tell you what, everyone was saying, Valley? Are we talking about Valley? Anyway. And also Charles Edmonds of the Alcorn State Sports Radio Network and co-host of the Carlos Brown Show. He will be joining us as well. So
we got Tall Man Radio to join.
Tall Man Radio's coming in. Exactly. Yeah, he's ready to talk about. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be a lot of good stuff to talk about. All right, so here's how we're going to do the show. We're going to break it up in segments. We're going to talk MEAC here in this first hour. We're going to start with the women, and then we're going to get into talking about the men. And then in the second hour, we'll get into the SWAC. SWAC women first, SWAC men second. And we'll do all kinds of things, maybe some predictions, some analysis, kind of see where the conversation goes. Obviously, you guys in the chat room, hello to everybody there. Early folks who come in. Emmett Jones, we say hello to you. Tamara T, always good to have you, Tamara. Good to see you. Walter Harley, thank you for coming in and checking us out. Karen Griffin, hello to you, Karen. Herb Seward, Herb, good to see you, Herb. All right. That should be a good one here, especially with some good MEAC intel. So feel free to drop any nuggets you got there, Herb. Mary 305, good to see you.
Shout out to Herb with the HBCU basketball nightly. He did a nice show with the team last night.
Okay. That's right.
I'm going to borrow some of the information. I will give them credit, unlike some folks. I will give them credit.
Okay. Hey, it's all good.
We need to send Herb a link. We need to send Herb a link and have him come on in.
Hey, Herb, you let us know, Herb. You want to come join us in this first hour? All you got to do is hit us up. We're glad to bring you in. Also, shout out to Mike Reed jumping in on Facebook. I appreciate you joining in on Facebook. I want to ask a question now. I don't want you to answer it, but I want you to think about this as we talk about these last two HBCU tournaments. Hold on a second, Drew. I'm gonna put this out there, and I just wanted to marinate and sit out there because maybe we'll address it either sometime in the second hour. Which of the 5 postseason tournaments is right now operating the best? And when I say operating, You can use whatever metrics you want to in terms of visuals, in terms of accessibility, in terms of action, setup, length, whatever you want to use as your metric. That's what I want to know. So by the end of the show, I'd love to hear from Drew, Doc, any of you guys in the chat room, which of the 5 conferences, which of their tournaments are operating the best. Drew, would you want to add?
Chuck Hunt must be at work, fellas, because we can't have a show without Chuck Hunt checking in from Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, he'll get in. I know Chuck will find his way in. Chuck will find his way. I know he will. he might just be driving, or he might just be getting off work. So we're
not on a regular night, so he probably got his workday scheduled around our show.
Is he has his phone upside down. That's what that is.
All right.
He didn't have it set for a Monday show. That's what it was.
I know. He threw everybody for a curveball. We tried to tell everybody last night. We tried to tell y'all. I don't know if y'all didn't think we were serious about it. Oh, Bryan and AD just be talking. But we told y'all we were going to do this. So anyway, let's start with the women. As we start with the women, we got to start and pay homage to the champs.
Hey, before you do that, we got to answer your question, Bryan. That was a great deal. AD, you gonna answer the question? I so want to answer it because I think
you want to jump into that first. You want to jump into that?
Which question?
I thought you were leaning because you asked Drew, and then he wanted to make sure he gave a shout out there.
I was gonna wait. I was gonna.
Oh, you teasing? No. Let's tease it out. Then you right. Hold on. Go back to the champion. Let's pay homage. You right.
All right. You guys who chat, I'm gonna save your comments, and we're gonna get them in there later. All right. Let's start with the MEAC women. Of course, we're gonna start with the Norfolk State Lady Spartans, the defending champs. A winning percentage of 92.9, a school record for the best winning percentage in program history since they joined the conference. I believe, how many years in a row has it been Norfolk State's won the regular season? Are they like, let me see. Hold on. I got it right here. Why am I hesitating? No, they won it last year. And so second year in a row. Technically, if you include 2 seasons ago when there was a 3-way tie with Howard and Morgan, you could basically say 3 years in a row they have won outright or shared the conference title. Here's something that my first did you know. The last 3 years, the team that won the regular season championship or had a share of it ended up winning the conference tournament. Just to throw that out there. And this year, Norfolk State was the outright winner. So just throwing that out there.
That's a good one to throw out there.
Yeah, okay. All right. So here we go. Here's our women's bracket and what it looks like. As you can see, starting at the very top, and the MEAC runs in quarterfinal 8 teams, and they actually run similar to the SWAC, where they'll have two games on Wednesday. The top seeds, the 1 and 2, will play Wednesday. The 3 and 4 teams will play Thursday in quarterfinals, and then both men and women play in the semifinals on Friday, with championship games on Saturday. Any thoughts on the format before we get into these game-by-game matchups, fellas?
I don't have any problem with the format. One thing I do appreciate, and again, this could be my male bias, but I think it works in terms of attendance a little more, is unlike the SWAC and a lot of other conferences we see that still host both a men's and women's tournament together. They play the women's games in the morning, matinee, if you would, and in the evening they play the men's game. The SWAC does a women's, men's, women's, men's. I like it. I like the MEAC format.
Right. Hey, Doc, I don't know if you heard the conversation yesterday. I know you were chiming in. I had threw out there something about the format for the MEAC, and I had threw out 2 things: either A, moving the MEAC tournament up a week so that people like us as HBCU fans don't necessarily have to choose like you've had to do so many years, which one you're going to go to, or you're going to split or something like that. And then the other idea I had was moving it up a week, but pushing it back, actually playing the quarterfinals on Saturday, Sunday, with the tournament ending on Tuesday, semifinals on Monday, and the championship game on Tuesday. And so that would be leading into this week, and then you MEAC championship game essentially could be Tuesday in this example, and then Wednesday you could be at the SWAC the next day. And my thinking about that was, obviously for fans, quarterfinals gives more people opportunity to attend the quarterfinals, whereas let's be real, on Wednesday, you would literally be able to count the number of people at a game at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday. I don't care what tournament you're in, what conference you're in, those midweek early round games are always poorly attended. Your thoughts?
I agree with the back end first in regards to it doesn't matter when you play your early round games. They're not going to be well attended. Other than if you have one of what I call the black bloods, if you would, of HBCU basketball, those programs where fans, are really loyal and they tend to come early because they think their team is going to have, and they're usually right, have a long stay in terms of playing semifinals, if not finals, in terms of the basketball program. So some of those fans will trickle in a little early. But traditionally, across the country, it doesn't matter what conference, and I'm not sure if people pay that close attention because people talk about attendance. Attendance is not something that conferences worry about early on in the conference. They don't expect fans to do that. And if you talk about, particularly for our fans, HBCU fans, which mainly happen to be African-American or Black, we tend not to have the disposable income, even though that's changed a little more. We do have that. But more generically, culturally, we don't tend to take off work that early. We are used to being in positions where we have to work. And we certainly don't like to use that time because we believe it's better to spend it for holidays and annual family trips, whether that's in terms of going to sorority, fraternity conventions, or whether it's going to church conventions, gospel type things that we're working on, retreats. So we tend to kind of save those days. Obviously, the Christmas, Thanksgiving holiday, we'll take off a full week or extra day because we're going down with the family. So I don't know if that's realistic to create that and force that on a culture. Obviously, as a media person, national media person, I love the idea, and I'm going to kind of coin that phrase, because you have your local media and the media that's dedicated to your conference. They're going to be there regardless. But what we now have is this HBCU national media, which has grown. If you want them involved, it would help if there's better coordination in terms of one of the conference moving up a week in terms of that format. Obviously, This does bounce it off the fact that you're running into the SIAC in terms of that footprint, but still it's would be more conducive for those that just kind of follow the Division I framework. So that's a great point. I'm a little concerned about a Monday, Tuesday championship, unless you squarely understand that maybe you're getting into spring break and you try to make that work. But because of the travel,
it's the same week. It's the same week of spring break anyway. You're just early in the week versus late in the week.
Yeah, and I think that will help some, but I think most people pretty much book in spring break for vacation and family time. So I don't know if they're going to dedicate going to a cultural event such as a MEAC SWAC championship to go to a basketball tournament, unless you're really connecting it with the city of interest. So I just think you have too many variables for that to realistically work. I think it would be important for them to study it and really get the data, because we're just kind of coming off of what we personally have experienced and collected data. But again, I do like the idea more than anything, that your first point on there was at least moving one of the tournaments up a full week. That way you could get to see that. But you're still asking that HBCU national media, if they're not full-time with way they cover sports and getting paid for that, they're taking off their first job to do this secondary job. So you're talking about them instead of just taking off 2, maybe 3 days. Now they're going to have to take off, 4, 5, 6 days.
Right. And my thinking behind that, Doc, is for those early round games, if you've got every team playing on Saturday and Sunday, all 8 teams by playing your quarterfinals, your 2 days of quarterfinals on Saturday and Sunday, better visuals, better attendance. I've been a part of tournaments where there have been less than 100 people there on that 10 o'clock game on a Tuesday, and it's not a championship experience for the student athletes when you don't even have mom and daddy there Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right, but I don't know how you.
I'm just throwing out. Just throwing something out there from conversation.
I think that's important. I'm not saying that you shouldn't throw that out there. I want to make sure that it's clear. I'm not saying that I'm taking umbrage in regards to you putting it out there. I think that is extremely important. I just look at the variables that you're talking about in regards to a 10 o'clock game on a Wednesday. I don't know how you can do 8 teams. And really, when you think about it, you're talking about 16 because you're doing men's and women's, unless you're going to separate the men's and women's tournament. I don't know how you can effectively run a tournament where you have to have a game at 10 o'clock. And as we said, you can go to the ACC. You can go to ACC, and you're not going to get a significant crowd at 10 o'clock unless it's like North Carolina, unless it's like Duke, unless it's like Kentucky. But you can look at Florida. Florida can play 10 o'clock in the SEC. They're not going to have a significant fan base there on a Wednesday.
Yeah. Right. That's why I say maybe that, but on Saturday at noon, round 1, this same schedule starting on Saturday at noon, and everybody gets to see potentially all 4 teams on the weekend. You see 4 games on Saturday.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Take advantage that you have more people. Yeah. Yeah, there's something to consider for that. You just know that you're not going to have a lot for your championship game. Which is what, and
just before we continue on,
that's 1 game versus 4 games, so you have a point there.
Yeah. And Russell, I said the BAC instead of the SWAC. There's no bias, but considering that the SWAC and the SIAC essentially have the same footprint, then that way those 2 conferences would not be competing with each other, because the CIAA, which has the same footprint as the BAC, is a week prior. So it would be CIAA, BAC, and then SWAC with the SIAC overlapping in between those 2. So essentially you would be talking about 3 consecutive weeks of basketball for HBCUs if what I say will be something that would be considered. And with just a couple of days of overlap between the SIAC and the BAC, which essentially do not have the same fan bases because they're in 2 different regions of the country.
Now, I would tell you this on the TV part. The TV championship would not mind whether you have their championship on a Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, because they do championship games throughout the week, and they market it as championship week. So television wouldn't have a problem with it.
All right, let's go through the matchups. The opening round quarterfinal matchups, starting in, if you're looking at the bracket from top down. So we'll start with the top half of the bracket. Just a few notes here. Number 1 seed, Norfolk State, going up against South Carolina State. The last 2 meetings this year have not been close by a margin. The final score, the last 2 times these teams met, by 62 and 61. Norfolk State beating South Carolina State by 60. That's right. 62 and 61. Final score 87-25. The last meeting and the previous meeting before that, 94-33. That's almost tripling up your opponent. The last time
out, Bryan. You said 25 points in a Division I college basketball game.
Yes, Drew. The first time they played this year, it was 94-33, a 61-point margin. The second time was 87-25, a 62-point margin. So expect the point spread to be 50. Might be 55. Just saying. The last
that game
time
won't be on the board.
no, it better not be. But there might be somebody. Anyway, the last year they met in the tourney. Last year they met in the tournament. Norfolk State only beat them by 24 points. This has been a lopsided series. Norfolk State is currently on a 13-game winning streak against South Carolina State. The last time that South Carolina State beat Norfolk State, January 23rd, 2016, it just happened to be in Norfolk. So I don't know. Not saying it can't happen, but it did one time before.
I can say it's not going to happen. No, you talking about the top two scorers in the conference for Norfolk State, Diamond Johnson, as many people are familiar with, and Kiera Wheeler getting it done in terms of them scoring 19.6 and 16 points a game, respectively. You do not even get a South Carolina State player in the top 10. You have to go down to number 18 and 19, just inside the top 20 before you get South Carolina players that scoring. And guess what they average? They average 8.9 and 8.8 a game in terms of Tania McGowan and Morgan Beecham. And so there's just a talent gap that is significant there. You saw it in terms of points per that game. In South Carolina State, with all due respect, they've struggled all season. So they're getting back in terms of trying to figure out what they want to do for their women's basketball program. Obviously, a little different on the men's side. They've sped that up a little bit. So there's hope out there for South Carolina State that they can get things going. But this is probably my biggest chalk of the weekend.
Yeah.
I even like this in terms of the point differential and moving Norfolk State on. Obviously, we'll talk more about the SWAC then, but just giving some people a comparison. You got Prairie View and number 1 seed Jackson State. I give this a larger percentage in terms of a chance to win, even though I think Jackson State is overwhelmingly the favorite. That's how big of a gap I see between Norfolk State and South Carolina State. So you can chalk this in. This is essentially them getting a bye game on a positive way because they get to play. But with all due respect to the Bulldogs of South Carolina State, this is like 99-1. I mean, you'd be lucky to get 1%. The South Carolina State can find a way to upset the Spartans in this matchup.
I'm going to just say this one point, and then we can move on for this game, because this game really doesn't even deserve the lengthy discussion that Dr. Cavil just gave on it. Norfolk is giving up 49.1 points on defense. So you mean to tell me that they gave up half of their average to South Carolina State in one of the games? In conference play, Norfolk's defense gives up 49.1 points. They gave up 25 to South Carolina State. Enough said. Let's go on to the next matchup, man.
Next matchup is Coppin State, the 4 seed, versus the 5 seed, Maryland Eastern Shore. Now, this is going to be an interesting contest. These teams have split the last 4 seasons that the MEAC have played. 24 this year, 23, 22. There was no games played in 21, and then 20. So the last 4 years, it's been 4-4. However, in the tournament, in the MEAC tournament, it's Maryland Eastern Shore who have won. I think they won back in 2022, 73-65. They also won back in 2020. And they also won. I went back a little further because the MEAC had said that this is the 3rd meeting in the last 5 years. They also won in 2017. So I don't know if that's slight edge to Maryland Eastern Shore, but that's what's out there. Drew, what are your thoughts on this matchup? And then we'll go to Doc.
Maryland Eastern Shore, boy, game. And I told you, Bryan, the one stat that I like to look at come this time of the season is your rebounding stat. What is your team doing rebounding? Are they limiting their opponents by clearing the defensive board, and are they giving themselves second chance opportunities with offensive rebounding? Well, offensive rebounds, Maryland Eastern Shore is number 2 in the conference, averaging just under 14 a game at 13.9. But when it comes to defensive rebounding and overall rebounding, Maryland Eastern Shore is number 5. Opponents' rebounds, they're up there, which means they'll rebound, but they give up a lot of rebounds. What does that tell me, Bryan? It's gonna be a lot of brick city when you play Maryland Eastern Shore. Coppin has a chance, but like I said, I like to look at that rebounding stat. That's really a key stat that I think usually can dictate, especially between close teams, who's going to win. And in this 4-5 matchup, I'm going to lean with the team that has a little bit better of a rebounding margin. That's going to be Maryland Eastern Shore.
I do too. I lean Maryland Eastern Shore. Doc, who do you lean with in this one?
4-5 matchup. This is one of those games that can go either way. I think you showed how close these teams are in terms of playing each other. Obviously, it's a slight rivalry. They're both being out of the state of Maryland. In terms of the matchups, both teams won at home this year. You talked about a split, but it was Coppin State winning at home 75-69. But when the return trip later in the season, Maryland Eastern Shore really pounded Coppin State 73-51. Maryland Eastern Shore is going to try to slow it down and really play the defense and maybe take advantage if Coppin State scores are off and maybe get it done that way. But in terms of scoring, you have Faith, Blackstone, as well as number 4 leader, Laleda Lawrence, number 4 in scoring in the conference. She's averaging 14.7 a game, but Coppin State also has another scorer right behind Faith Blackstone, Angel Jones. So not only do you have a 1-2 punch, you have a 1-2-3 punch. So Maryland Shore has a challenge in regards to who they want to stop. And so while they may have an edge on the defensive side, the challenge you have with a team such as Coppin State is you have a couple of players in top 10 in scoring and kind of give you the business, if you would, at least spread the ball around in case somebody is off. And so with that being the lower seed 4, even though there's not much difference, obviously you see upsets for the 4 or 5 all the time, I'd have to go with the Eagles of Coppin State to get this done. I like what Herb says in terms of guard play is likely going to be the difference in this game, some of the names I just mentioned.
Okay. We'll stick to this top half of the bracket for a second. With Norfolk State advancing to the semis in all of our predictions, whether it be Doc with Coppin State or Drew and I with Maryland Eastern Shore, do either of them have an opportunity or a chance to knock, or maybe the better way of saying it is how much of a chance do you give either of the 4-5s to knock off Norfolk State in the second round in the semis? Doc?
I don't give much hope for a 4 or 5 Norfolk State or Maryland. I think if Norfolk State goes down, it's going to be in the championship game. It's not going to be the semis. They did what was necessary. They got the best side of the bracket. Obviously, we talked about South Carolina State is not a problem. I don't see much of a problem even from the 4 or 5 matchup. I think the biggest threat is from that 2-3 on the other side. Whoever gets out of that in terms of Howard or North Carolina Central, best matchup. And obviously the easiest one out there is Howard. Howard has already done it. The one loss that Norfolk State has on the schedule is to Howard. Howard got it done. That was really early in the season. Threw everybody off because after the first game, you saw Spartans pounding people that came in with big wins in non-conference play. But that's probably in a lot of people's polls why you see Norfolk State number 2 and Jackson State number 1 in those that do major division polls for HBCU Division I women's. Even in our top 25 mid-major poll, you have Jackson State over Norfolk State in terms of those polls. And I think a lot of that is because of that early loss in conference play to Howard. So that's the game. If we get it in our finals, that's where you're going to have your bang for your buck and you might have a good game. Because both of those games, although Norfolk State got the revenge against Howard, They were both relatively close games in terms of those matchups. So don't worry about the quarterfinals, the semifinals. So, AD, Drew, you think you have a problem with people showing up? They don't even see these as contests, so it's going to be even more trouble. They're going to wait until with the expectation that their team is going to get into a championship game. So they'll come in Friday, get their party on, and they'll be ready to go to the championship game on Saturday.
Look, Norfolk playing at the Scope, right across town at the Scope. You know, I'm expecting some people from the Rhodes area, to have the Rhodes area, to be over there at the game, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I was talking about the South Carolina State fan. They gonna watch.
Say your money. Say your money.
Yeah,
say your money. Say your money, bro. Say your money. Hey. We got Bradley East Shore and Norfolk in the second round. At least that's what I have. There are only 3 teams with a positive turnover margin in the MEAC on the women's side. Maryland Eastern Shore, they're forcing 19.1 turnovers per game, and they're only turning the ball over 16.4 times for a 2.64 turnover margin, which is another reason why I've got them over Coppin. But I said there were 3 teams, right? That's one of the 3 teams. Mm-hmm. The team that's number 1 in the conference.
What's that?
Is Norfolk State.
What's their margin?
They're forcing 21.7 turnovers per game. Mm-hmm. And they take care of the ball because they only turn it over 12.9 times per game. Ooh. That is a 8.79 margin. That's nice. Almost unheard of,
right?
When it comes to turnover margin. Mm-hmm. Anytime you get over 5, you're doing good.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a very quick break and then come back and talk about the bottom half of the women's bracket, and then get into our final predictions for the women. You guys in the chat room, get ready. A lot of you seem to be leaning towards 2 particular teams, but I'm curious, does anybody on the bottom half of the bracket have a chance of surprising? I think there might be a surprise team hanging around in the weeds in the bottom half of the MEAC bracket. Let's take a short break, come back and find out who that is right after this. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap, and Dr. Cavil is inside the HBCU Sports Lab breaking down the MEAC and SWAC tournament. We'll be back right after these very short words.
We're back. It's time for the 2024 Urban NerdCon. Join us in Atlanta, Georgia, April 26th through the 28th at the Cortland Grand Hotel. Special guests include the Sci-Fi Sisters, Underworld creator Kevin Grievous, from Nickelodeon, Giovanni Samuels, the Science Machine Michael Green, from Spaceballs and Star Trek Voyager Tim Russ, and from the Fairly Odd Parents Gary L. Gray.
What up, y'all? It's Gary Gray. Check it out. I need you to do something for me. Join me April 26th through the 28th at the Cortland Grand Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia for Urban NerdCon. It's going to be lit. Okay. Our heroes, our villains, everyone's con. See y'all there.
Visit theurbannerdcon.net to get your buy one, get one free badges before the price increases. Remember, our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN's collaboration with Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab and the BCSN SportsWrap here, breaking down the MEAC and SWAC basketball tournaments, which both begin Wednesday, March 13th, with quarterfinal action for both the top seeds on Wednesday, and then the next 3 and 4 seeds, along with their opponents, will play on Thursday in both the MEAC and the SWAC. Of course, the MEAC is playing their tournament at the Scope Arena in Norfolk, Virginia, and the SWAC is playing in, I believe it's Bartow Arena. Is that the name correct?
That would be correct.
Yes.
In Birmingham, Alabama. All right. Appreciate. Let me see. I think there was maybe a question or two that I wanted to ask real quick before we get into the second half. Let's see. EA had kind of asked a question: why is the NCAA tournament starting so late in March? Which the 20th and 21st, meaning that this year the national championship game won't actually take place until almost the first weekend of April.
I can answer that.
Please.
Actually, if you go through and look at the calendar this year and next year, this year because of leap year, we've got an extra weekend, an extra full weekend that we have, and it has affected a lot of things that have happened not only in 2024 but will happen in 2025. For instance, in football this year, you'll see a lot of teams on our level who will play 12 games. The reason that they can play 12 games is because there is an extra Saturday in which they can play those 12 games. This year is because of the leap year. Next year is because of the natural calendar. So because of that, some things are going to be off this year, next year, because of how the calendar fell with that extra full weekend that we have this year.
That's absolutely correct. It's just the NCAA has a calendar for when things can start, and it's usually based on the first week of a particular month. And so, as AD Drew alluded to, the calendar effectively created extra weekend, which allowed a month to start a little late in terms of a week, which pushed everything back in the spring regarding basketball. You see it next year with the calendar providing the extra early weekend. And you'll see that actually the next 2 years where FCS programs get an extra Saturday, which allows them to play a 12th game if they so desire versus the traditional 11-game schedule or take an extra bye. That's correct.
One other question come from Herbert. Says that Norfolk State could very well be a 15 seed or higher, meaning moving up to the 14 seed line. If, obviously if they win,
what is the conference rating? What's the conference rating for the MEAC? Because it's going to have a lot to do with can Norfolk get out off of that 16 line. Right now, if you ask me, I don't think they will be in the first four if they went out, but I'm a little hesitant to say they would quite make it to a 15.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for the 15. I think they're going to have a lot of upsets in the other one bid leagues in terms of the standings. So where they're ranked as an overall conference, because while Norfolk State did their part in regards to winning non-conference games, you have that factor that benefits them, and they'll get the benefit of that. But you also have the calculation of the conference ranking in the puzzle, which is going to give them a little more of a challenge because of the teams at the bottom part of the conference did not do as well as they did. It creates a weighted factor that is not in their favor for the MEAC. So it's going to be a challenge to do that. Oftentimes, though, these teams get the benefit of the fact that they have won for a couple of years in a row, even though they're not supposed to look at it. They do figure in certain ways that they have the ability to float teams. So even though they may be in terms of the net rankings, as you talked about, 80 Drew, if it's regional that they want to schedule them in such a way or something of that nature, the committee does have the ability to slide them up to a 14 seed if they happen to be at the 15 seed, or slide them back, unfortunately, to a 16 seed. So it can float, and there are many factors. So be careful of just looking at one or two factors in regards to where you see a seeded team. But it's possible, but I see it like you, 80 Drew, highly unlikely.
I just checked the conference and team net rankings, which, of course, is the rankings that Dr. McClellan and the NCAA Well, actually, no, he's not over the women. So let me
Nah,
rephrase
he's not
that.
on this committee.
That's right.
He's only
But
over the
they
men.
use the same set of data.
They use the same metrics, right? So the conference net ranking for the MEAC is 30 of 33. SWAC happens to be 29 of 33. Norfolk State is the highest rated team in the MEAC with a 121 net ranking, second only to Jackson State, who has a 101 net ranking. So I think, last
what
year,
you need is
Howard
one of those.
four. I don't think Norfolk State
Yeah.
will be a first four.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm like Dr. Cavil. It's going to have to be a lot of one bid leads, low majors, as they like to call them, whose number 4 seed wins their conference tournament in order for Norfolk to even have consideration of getting off that 16 line.
I agree.
But I think they should be clearly outside the first 4.
All right, let's get into the bottom half of the women's bracket here. Interesting matchup. Howard and Morgan State alums, they're going to be at it for the next 2 days in the middle of the week. If they haven't already started on social media, just get out of the way, because this matchup, this matchup for the women is also a matchup on the men's side. So I'm gonna just, I would just back away from any Howard and Morgan State fans. Just stay out of it and let them go at it for the next 4 days. And after Thursday, we'll see how the dust settles. But the women will play first.
Bryan, you are a smart man.
Yes, I've learned through my interactions with Jackson State folks to stay out of the way of other folks' business. So I wish some Jackson State folks would do that. But anyway,
They can't help themselves.
I know they can't help themselves. They stop. You'll get in trouble.
They like me. I can say that.
They don't like me because But anyway,
and Bryan still ain't got the smoke out of his house from last week.
I know. I'm still fanning stuff out. Anyway. Wednesday, March 13th, they play at 2:00. Howard is the 2 seed. Morgan is the 7. The last time they played was the 24th. Howard won that contest 70-47. Howard has won 4 of the last 5 meetings. And at least as far as I can tell statistically, this might be the first time these 2 teams have met in the MEAC tournament. Doc, Drew, anything you can glean from this matchup that you guys have pulled out?
Go ahead, Drew.
All right, I was gonna say, for me, Howard, the number 2 team in the conference in field goal percent. Morgan, the number 7 team in the conference in field goal percentage. Opponents' field goals: Howard, number 3 defensively. Morgan, number 6 defensively. You got to put the ball in the hole. Howard puts the ball in the hole better than Morgan. Howard stops you from putting the ball in the hole better than Morgan. Advantage Howard.
Pretty good combination right there. Doc?
Yeah, Howard is the team that, that got the win, as we said, over Norfolk State, but they also had some strange losses. They lost to Coppin State. Obviously, they lost to Morgan State, as well as they got them both times, I should say, in terms of that side of it. But Howard can float on you if you're not careful. I think the best thing that happens is this game is you're going to have all the talk between the fans. And so while the players are not supposed to look at that, they're going to look at it, which is going to make sure that the Bison are focused. And with that being said, I think, as Drew alluded to, when you talk about the talent for Howard, if they come to play with Tiana Howard, Ayana Warren, top 10 scores, really top 5 and 6 in terms of what they're able to bring, 14.3 and 12.2. You got that balanced scoring. And so they're going to find a way to do it. They play pretty good, tenacious defense. I think they're going to be focused in terms of trying to get back to that championship game that they missed last year, where they won it 2 years ago, or a couple of years ago. So I look for Howard to get this done. I think the game will be a little closer than most of us think, but Bison will find a way to pull it out.
Hey, Bryan, check your PC. I see some smoke coming out of it via the chat room. Coming out of your PC, Bryan.
Nope. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. You can't bait. You can't bait me. I gotta get over. I gotta wait until we get over into the SWAC talk. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not falling for it. Okay, the 3-6 matchup: North Carolina Central versus Delaware State. The last meeting was on the 26th of February. Delaware State won that contest, 75-64. They actually snapped a 5-game losing streak to North Carolina Central. The last time these teams met in Norfolk was March 12th in 2019, which North Carolina Central won. Any chance the good feelings that Delaware State experienced from a couple of weeks ago carries over into this 3-6 matchup? Doc, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I think this is one that you want to keep your eyes on. 3-6. Couple of reasons here. North Carolina Central. Really, you need to give them a lot of credit. I don't think people coming into this season thought Central, first-year coach, had a chance to really play this well. I mean, they were into being right up on that second seed, throughout the season in regards to what that looks like. So this is a quality team. They do have a couple of tough losses that kind of make your head spin. But with all that being said, when you talk about North Carolina Central, I like what they bring to the table. They did have the loss to North Carolina, Delaware State on Monday, 26th. Charles likes to talk about, at least in the SWAC, a lot of things happen on the Monday. And then you have the really unique schedule with the MEAC, where oftentimes, unlike what you see following the SWAC with the travel partners, you have the travel partners, but in the MEAC, they switch. So on a weekend, you'll have one game at home, and then your following game will be on the road, or vice versa. You have your first game on the road, your next game at home. So I think that makes it unique, and you can see really some things happen on those Mondays versus what you traditionally see on Saturday, Monday type of matchups. North Carolina Central did get Delaware State in their first game going back to late January. They won that game 64-58. So these have been competitive contests. So if you're talking about the upset, obviously the first one people like to look at, they're 4-5, but more of a true upset if you have would be 3 versus 6. So if I was going to have to pick something that did not go chalk, this is the one I'm going to lean in, particularly although North Carolina Central has really did well this year. It's kind of unique when you get into tournament time. And those teams that have kind of done well, better than what people thought, oftentimes it's the tournament time where they get a little tight. So particularly if Delaware State is able to get up on Central early in that game, it could be a struggle for the Eagles, the ladies getting it done late in that game as they start putting their own pressure on themselves. So if I had to go for an upset, I would go with this one of the 4 games between Wednesday and Thursday. I would say this Thursday matchup with Delaware State find a way to get it done and sending home the Eagles on the women's side of North Carolina.
And this would technically be an upset. I mean, Delaware State only won 4 games in the conference. North Carolina Central won 9. Having got the monkey off the back does help. And like you said, now the thing is, if North Carolina Central can avoid the upset, right? And it's people may look at that and say, "Oh, what do you mean? They're 9 wins versus 4." Okay, I get it. But if they avoid slipping to the 6th seed, they have a very favorable potential matchup against Howard, a team that they beaten twice. They beaten Howard twice during the regular season. They beat them at Howard in overtime, 70-64. And then they beat them at home in overtime, 79-66. So what are the odds of a third matchup going to overtime? I would say pretty high, right? I would say pretty high. But, I'm not going to tell you that it's hard to beat a team 3 times because it's not because you beat them twice. It's probably very easy to beat a team 3 times. I'm just saying. But that's going to be an interesting matchup, Howard and North Carolina Central. What do you think potentially on that matchup, Drew? And then
I do see a potential upset in this one, and here's the path forward for Delaware State. These 2 teams are back-to-back when it comes to points allowed. North Carolina Central give it up 64.6 points, Delaware State 65 points. So essentially, that's a wash. 64.6 versus 65 points. Here's what you have to pay attention for. Since those teams are that close, I go to turnover margin. Delaware State has a better turnover margin than North Carolina Central. Delaware State, even though it's in the negative 1.71, North Carolina Central turns the ball over 2.64 more times than they force turnovers. So essentially, that's an extra turnover. Another stat that favors Delaware State is 3-point percentage. Delaware State shoots the ball a little bit better from behind the arc than Central at a 29.3% clip versus a 27.4% clip. So in the game where these two teams are evenly matched, we're talking about a turnover or two and being able to hit the long ball a little bit better. That's the path forward for Delaware State to be able to pull off this upset.
You got people already wondering about your sneaky stat, AD. Your stat here and how that may come into effect should you get a. And I don't know if I don't know if you're talking about a potential Central and Howard matchup or if you're referring to that matchup. Just if you would comment in the chat, let us know. What's your take, Doc, on that potential Central? Well, obviously
he was watching yesterday. He saw about my rebound stat.
Yeah, exactly. What's your take, Doc? I know you said this could be the upset, but let's say it goes chalk and the 2 and 3 advance. What's your thoughts on Howard and Central?
Certainly, I'll play along. If it's Howard and Delaware State in regards to the matchup, just to sneak that out there, I don't think it'd be as fun as the matchup between North Carolina Central and Howard. I would admit that. So I think Howard, if they face Delaware State, they beat them both twice over the year pretty solidly. So I'd have to give Howard facing Norfolk State in the championship where things could really get interesting. But for the sake of having this discussion, and which would be much more intriguing, I would think, because as you said, the first 2 games went in overtime. And I like the fact that you kind of push back on folks saying it's hard to beat somebody 3 times. No, I think you got to look a little closer, and this is a perfect example where it's going to be a challenge more than it would follow that road. But if I've seen matchups where you have a team that throttled a team twice, where they were clearly superior to the team. In that case, I agree, Bryan. No, you go more than likely when you have those kind of matchups, you go bop them in the head again. You just clearly better than the team. Now, there's some games that follow this where there clearly is not a huge disparity in regards to the style and the talent within the teams when you have 2 games go to overtime. So it's anyone's matchups, even though Central, to their credit, got both victories, home and away. So to me, it's a little more challenging because the teams are just so close. You can throw it up and flip a penny in terms of coming down and saying, all right, heads or tail, who's going to win this matchup? So I think that's the one, as you said, would be much more intriguing in terms of a semifinal matchup, unlike the other semifinal game. This is the one you want to keep your eyes on if it happens to go chalk where you get your 2 versus 3. This is the game that is going to be the one that you want to match up, and you would have to go in any direction. If I had to go in this direction again, I'm going to lead why I said that Central is the team that could potentially be upset. This is unfamiliar territory in regards to this group with this coach in regards to having this level of success. And you got to believe that this game is probably going to be close throughout. And so that's when the pressure gets on you a little more of your season ending. And that's when I think some of those turnover errors that you talked about, not being able to get those easy buckets, and the shots get a little tougher. So I would still give the edge to Howard. So regardless of whether my upset takes place in the quarterfinals or not, I see Howard in this rematch, if you would, facing Norfolk State again in a championship game, particularly this year with both of them splitting. That's going to be an interesting, as it'll be a 1 versus 2 matchup in the championship game on Saturday. with Norfolk State and the Howard Bison getting a chance to pull that ticket, get their Cinderella shoes on, and go dancing in the women's NCAA tournament.
Drew, are you going with a Howard Norfolk State championship game?
Yeah, I don't care who comes out that 3-6 matchup. Neither one of them's gonna beat. Excuse me for my improper English. Ain't nobody gonna beat Howard on that bottom half.
You really? Come on, you say that like Howard's invincible. I just gave you the numbers. Central's beat them twice in overtime. You're that confident in Howard.
And you've coached Bryan. You lose to a team 2 times in overtime. What have you gone back and done more than anything else? What film do you watch more than any other film to break down? Because if you lose it to them in overtime, that means that was 1, maybe 2 possessions where you just didn't execute something right. So what do you get back in practice to do, Bryan? You work on that. Whether it's a blob play or defending a blob play or something along those lines, you work on that one thing that cost you in that particular game to make sure you don't get beat that way and emphasize everything else that you're doing right. Howard, Norfolk, finals. Then we can talk about who's going to win that.
I'll be the contrarian then. I'll be the contrarian. I'll go with the. I'll just lean on the, again. This is of course if Central avoids Doc's upset in round 1, which I think is in play. That's a fair in play potential upset. I'm gonna go with Central making it to the championship against Norfolk State. That's what I'm gonna go with. So I'll be the contrarian, and I'll sit out the next question, which is how does Howard? What is Howard going to do? What is Howard going to do to beat Norfolk State should they get there? And I may tell you what North Carolina Central will do to beat Norfolk State. Go ahead, Doc.
No, I'm agree with you. I think it's an incredible matchup between Norfolk State and Howard, and you can kind of throw it in the air. I'd have to give the edge to Norfolk State because I think they have a heart of a champion. They want to get it done again, but don't be surprised if Howard Bison can find a way to knock down the Giant and get it done. But I'm leaning to the Spartans. Be at home. You're going to have a good crowd, particularly if the men are able to do well and get it done, which I think is a little more challenging this year than what we've seen in the past. But one way or the other, they're going to have the home crowd advantage, and I think that's going to be the difference in that game. And the Spartans on the women's side get it done.
What about you, Drew?
All right, now it's time to go to my stat. Rebounding. Howard averages 38.7 rebounds per game. Norfolk averages 35.3 rebounds per game. That's just over 3 rebounds per game difference. 3.4 to be exact. Where a majority of those rebounds at? Offensive rebounds. Howard averages just shy of 14 offensive rebounds per game versus 11.5 for Norfolk State. Those offensive rebounds mean second chance points, Bryan. Here's another stat for you to look at. Opponents' 3-point percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Howard only gives up number 2 in the conference, 25.9%. That's what their opponents shoot from behind the arc. Norfolk, their opponents shoot 30% from behind the arc. And when you look at what these two teams shoot individually, they both are 1 and 2 in the conference. So can Howard stop Norfolk? Because you're going to get your attempts against Norfolk. Can Howard make those attempts? And if they do and stop Norfolk, who gets their attempts also, but they give up more. So that's the other thing that you need to look at is who's gonna win from behind the arc. But here's the equalizer for Norfolk. I can't go away from this stat, man. Turnover margin, 8.79 for Norfolk, number 1 in the conference. Howard, number 2, 2.86. Howard, if you take care of the ball, knock down the long ball, offensive rebound, you can pull the upset.
So I'm gonna use your own stat to tell you. Now, again, my heart, look, my parent, my late mother, my father, Norfolk State alum. So, I got Spartan, I got Spartan blood in me, right? So I may be rooting for the Spartans, but I'm gonna tell you, okay, how is North Carolina Central? If they get there, how are they gonna do it, Drew? Going to your stat, rebounding. They lead the MEAC in combined team rebounding, averaging 40.5 a game, which is the top in the MEAC. They are the number 1 team defensive rebounding team in the SWAC, the MEAC, excuse me, in the MEAC. The combined rebounds for opponents, Norfolk State allows 34.3. Central allows the largest margin. So if that disparity there is anything, that would be troublesome there for Central, the fact that they allow the league worst amount in terms of combined rebounds. But on the defensive end is where they do it. And so, look, Central scores just as, you go and look at the total points in terms of offense. Central's offense is right there with Norfolk State, number 2 in the league. Question is, it's on defensive end. And that's where Norfolk State has a slight advantage. But, Drew, when you get to that point and you're playing on the 3rd night in the championship and the lights are bright, man, anything's possible. Anything's possible. So there is a window for North Carolina Central. It may be a small crack, but there's a window should it happen. And then I think if they run it against Howard, I think they serve notice to Howard that, look, you may have been the only team that blemished our record, and we're gonna blemish y'all. So I think Norfolk State comes out and just drops a hammer if they get Howard in the championship. So that's just my thought. All right. So again,
we got people waiting to.
Yeah. That championship again is on the Saturday the 16th. It's the second game of the 2. I think the men play earlier, which again, television scheduling, right, Doc? That's what. So when
that's all television.
When people start complaining, which they will, that's television.
Yeah. Notice the women's game is on ESPN Plus versus in ESPN. What is it? U.
Yeah, re-air on the U.
While the men's game will be ESPN 2, I believe it is. So you have the scheduling framework which gets us in the conversation, and I don't want to hold up too much time because we kind of got there. But you've heard in the SWAC where they start talking about women's getting the Thursday game. You see in a lot of conferences where they've moved Colonial, since we follow North Carolina A&T, where they have a Friday, Sunday, Thursday, Saturday. The Sunday games have kind of been reserved for women's basketball. If you've noticed that over the last couple of years, while Saturday obviously is men. So that's the challenge when you have both your men's and women's championship games. Traditionally, as we like to do it in the conference, you've seen it for years in other conferences. But we stuck to it where you have the matinee game being the women's and then the late game obviously being the men's. And so we have that format. Well, TV is going to push Saturday for men's championships versus Sunday for women's championship. And that's where you get in your television framework that Bryan kind of shakes his head at.
All right, let's do this. I'm gonna make a quick pivot. I know we said we would do both MEACs back to back, but I want to be kind to our guests that we got coming in. We're gonna pivot and go to SWAC, women and men, and then we're gonna finish the show with the men. So I think that way we split it up. We'll make the MEAC the bookends, and then we'll get into the meat here with Charles Bishop and Charles Edmonds on the other side, and we'll break down the women and the men's bracket coming up right after this break. And again, the question that I put out on the table to everybody, those of you in the chat room, which of the 5 HBCU conferences, you got the soon-to-be HBCU AC, formerly the GCAC, you've got the CIAA, the SIAC, the MEAC and SWAC, which tournament is the best ran or the best event, bang for your buck right now in Black college basketball? Just a question to put out there. Maybe we'll ask our panelists, our next guest coming up after the break, our Charles and Charles combo that's coming up here in just a moment. You guys hang in there. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching the BCSN, the Black College Sports Network, our MEAC and SWAC tournament preview show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
All right, look who we got in the house. It's a starting 5. It's a full house backfield with the Black College Sports Network. Of course, you got the SportsWrap here with me and Drew. You got the other half of the Dr. Cavils inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Hello to you, Charles Bishop. And then Tall Man Radio himself, Charles Edmonds, co-host of the Carlos Brown Show and the voice of the Alcorn State Braves. Gentlemen, how's everybody doing tonight?
How you doing, Bryan? Thank you for inviting me in.
Hey,
doing well, guys. I wonder which one in this backfield is gonna get thrown for a loss, or which one's gonna run for a touchdown. Which one is that?
Just don't count on me to throw too many blocks. I blocked like Coach Bryan used to tackle.
Hey, I'm catching balls out the backfield. I'm not trying to get hit like that.
Man, I thought we in basketball season. Point guard, man.
I dish a dime now. I dish a dime all day to you, Doc. Just make a shot. Don't mess up a dime.
Yeah, exactly. We got a point guard. We got a center. Charles, you as the center, obviously. I can play a little Barkley in the power forward, and then we got the backcourt guards there with Doc and Charles.
3-guard combo.
I'm going to have to move you to a wing.
Yeah, we running 3 guards, man. We running 3 guards.
I knew you would say that.
I used to run the point, so I can do that. I can handle that.
You know, I ain't afraid to, and I said I ain't afraid to pull it.
I knew you were gonna say that. I ain't scared to shoot.
I guess that means I got to go downhill and go to the cup there, Chuck.
Look, I'm just here to get rebounds, and so I don't get fined. That was my game.
We had the point forward, man. Come on, take it to the hole.
I'm just here to rebound, baby. Do the dirty work, whatever you need me to do. All right, gentlemen. So the SWAC tournament is coming up. The women and the men are coming up. We're gonna start with the women first. First question on the floor. Best story or the best storyline on the women's side from the past season, and then I'll add. Well, let's go women and men. Best story or storyline from the women and men season. I'll start with you, Bishop, and then go to you, Charles, and then we'll go Doc and Drew.
Best storyline. I think maybe FAMU in terms of their women's basketball team getting resurrected a little bit. I was very impressed by their season, although not in the tournament, but they seemingly turned things around and made some games really competitive. Won some impressive games out there.
Mm-hmm. What about the men's side? What's the story on the men's side?
Story on the men's side, I think, is a lot of injuries, and then the parity that I think you have in the league. I think that's one of the things that really jumped out for me because you had teams that would get on 2, 3, 4 game win streaks, and then all of a sudden you'd have a flip because of whatever reason. So I think this tournament in particular, from 1 to 8, anything can happen.
Charles, Edmond, what's your storyline of this past season on the women and then the men?
I think, just don't want to be a homer, but the Lady Braves getting back in the tournament after a 2-year hiatus, and considering the games that they had to win down the stretch to get there. Some of the games that they threw away last year that they didn't get in the tournament, we won some of those games, beating one of the top 4 teams, the UAPB, on Saturday, and then winning a big game at Prairie View, a game they had to have. So I would say that's one of the storylines, watching Lady Braves basketball back in the tournament. And I'll throw a little side one out for Jackson State. I mean, they went, 18-0. They were dominant. But I think the storyline is Jackson State women's basketball getting a vote for the AP Top 25.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't get a lot of oxygen right now, but I think that's a huge accomplishment. And it's not the first time it's been done, because when I was a student broadcaster at Grambling, and I think it was 88, Pat Bibbs, who was a longtime coach at Grambling, a Hall of Famer. I was doing games then. We won the Texas Tech Lady Raider tournament, and Texas Tech at that time was a quality top 30 program, won their tournament at their place, and Grambling got a vote for the top 25. So, I mean, I'll just say Jackson State obviously going undefeated, but I think them getting a vote for the top 25 and the Lady Braves getting in are the storylines for me.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Doc? Storyline from the women's season and then the men's season.
I'm gonna have to go with the Grambling women. New head coach. I think Grambling. Many people really thought about Grambling being a 2 seed and doing this well on the season. They, started out pretty solid, but they carried on, and everybody thought at some point that they were not going to be able to carry it all the way through. But they said not so fast. They get it done. So besides what the other gentleman said, which I agree with, that those are certainly good storylines, the one I would have to look at to be, throw something else on the paint board, if you would be Grambling and just how well they played. On the men's side, I'm going to have to go with the Braves. I think people thought they would be solid, but the way they fell hard, and now they have won 9 games in a row to ultimately finish in the 2 seed, I think says a lot about this team. And I would say for many people, that's the surprise more than not in terms of what's going on this season. So those are 2 teams I would look at.
And Drew, considering, guys, that, when you look at Alcorn's non-conference, the only wins we had in non-conference was against Miles College and Xavier, Louisiana. The toughest game we had was against Arkansas, game 1. We had a solid quad 2 mid-major schedule, didn't win any games. Don't know what we accomplished. We were winless there. Started out 1-3 in conference, a whole new assistant coaching staff. He had replaced 3 assistant coaches, a lot of new pieces. The transfer portal hurt us with guys like Dominique Bruton, who was one of the top players in this conference, transferred to Cal State Fullerton. The portal has helped us, but this year the portal helped us in terms of losing players. We started out 1-3. And for us to go on this winning streak at this point in time when we had to have it, we've been able to get that done. So that I think that's a pretty neat story. But you got to get it done in the tournament. That's what's missing on our resume right now.
Drew, how about you?
Well, got to talk about the elephant in the room if we're talking about storylines on the women's side, and that's UAPB. Team that was on a roll, that we thought could put everything together and to challenge Jackson State. I mean, the month of love, which is supposed to be February, we were supposed to be loving everybody. Wasn't a lot of loving going on in that locker room, or at least not the kind of loving that we need to see, because let's talk about the elephant in the room. They've been on the slide ever since then. The only two teams that they have beaten are the two teams that they were supposed to beat. So we've got that one. On a positive note, this past Saturday, man, with both men's and women's action and so many teams being in, fighting for positioning on this past Saturday, and teams sneaking in and getting knocked off and having to sit and see if A beat B because we lost and we didn't take care of our business, or we did take care of our business, but we needed a little help on both sides, men and women. I think that's another big storyline, that what we thought we knew, we didn't know on Saturday. I mean, tell the truth, y'all. Who had Alabama State and Birmingham on their bingo card on the men's side?
Yeah.
To my knowledge,
early in the season, I thought they played really well, but then they went on this swoon, whichever. I guess Hornet, I won't say swarm, but I guess that's a positive thing. So the swoon, I was like, no, I left them for dead. So you're right. The fact that they had to match up with the overall best team in the conference, obviously with the number one seed, the second hottest team going down the stretch to get it done, and fortunately got it at home. But they had to do it in overtime and come back each of those times to send it into the first overtime, to send it into the second overtime. So I agree with you. That is a fascinating when you start looking at the Hornets.
Yeah, they're such a Jekyll and Hyde team because TJ Matlock can really score. I've been really impressed by him this past season, but the consistency part of Alabama State, I never could figure that out.
Charles, don't say that because we got Herbert watching this and he's a Hornets fan. He's down there in terms of that. And credit to what they talked about at HBCU Nightly. I said I would shout them out in terms of the basketball thing they do on Sunday night. And he talked about that. His concern is the heckle and jive. How they can be really up and look really well and be down. Joshua Sims talked about the fact that you have some players that disappear in matchups, and you don't understand because they're too talented to do that. They're talented to get some players that will disappear. So it's gonna be fascinating. You think they're gonna have the ability to have a home crowd when they play, so that could maybe lather them up a little bit. Obviously, they seem to play better in regards to the fan base, so that's something to be interesting to see. Can they take advantage of maybe getting a little bit of home noise in terms of fan support to support them? But yeah, I agree. That's one of the question marks of the tournament. It wouldn't be surprised if they get an upset. Obviously, I don't see them doing 3 games in a row, but I see them taking down a team maybe in that quarterfinals to really make people scratch their head.
Okay, so for me, when I think about the women's side, look, you guys know I'm gonna try to take off my orange and green colored glasses. I mean, really, I am. I'm gonna try to take them and
all right, y'all. I've heard this for the last week, y'all. Are y'all sure y'all ready for this?
No, I may go somewhere different here. I'm gonna do like Israel said. I'm gonna stay away from correcting any kind of grammar because I'm gonna stay away from it. I appreciate the suggestion, Israel, but I'm gonna say 50. If I'm not mistaken, 50-1. 50-1 is, I think, the number that Tamika Reed has led Jackson State to over the past 3 seasons, which is, and there was the graphic that was there a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, matter of fact, or just 1 week ago, that showed her sitting percentage-wise right above what even Dawn Staley in South Carolina State is doing, what other top programs. I mean, this is a unprecedented. Well, it's an unprecedented dynasty in the fact that she's won their 5th regular season title outright. The previous number was 4, right? Grambling State had won 4 in a row, so she won 5. That's impressive. But this team, right? And this is what's so maddening, and I can't wait to see Player of the Year votes. This team doesn't really have one standout offensive player, and so I'm going to be curious to see what SWAC voters do with the first team ballot. I'm interested to see about the Player of the Year because I told you already know who I think statistically, offensively is the Player of the Year, and she may not even be the best player in the SWAC. I get it, but you know the fact that Jackson State has done it with a team of 4 to 5 really, really good players without one standing out above the other is really impressive to me.
I will push back on that just a little because
please.
I will say a player like Maya Crump is, I think, so underrated because she's such a great two-way threat. She can get her shot when she needs to get her shot. She plays tremendous defense. Although I understand your point, she doesn't stand out, but in so many ways she actually does stand out. And that's one of the things I've seen with her all season in terms of being a stat stuffer. She can get rebounds, she can score when need be, she can dish it, she can run the offense. She just does a lot of stuff for this team, and it sort of goes under the radar, but I'm going to be curious to see if she gets any first team consideration.
Well, and that's my point. When voters get to vote, and look, unless voters are using, and I was looking up, I know on the men's side, you can go to a place like KenPom and look up offensive stats, and you can get all these individual perspectives for the men's game. I don't know where that site is for the women. So unless somebody is creating their own metrics of efficiency and all of these other metrics that tell you, all you have to look at is what? The SWAC statistics, and you see a name that is constantly at the top. And then, yes, her team may be the 7th seed. And yes, they were predicted 10th. They were a horrible team last year. And so when you look at, again, the SWAC and historically what the SWAC has done, that's why I keep telling people when Grizzle gets the MVP, folks, don't get mad. It's just how it happens in the SWAC. She may not be, again, the quote-unquote best player in the conference. I get it. But statistically, she has the best statistics, and you all know better than me. I see Charles shaking his head. Charles, all y'all saying you know it. See? So I'm just bracing y'all out there who are watching, just bracing you. Look, Zay Green is a great player, good player. She don't have the statistics that. I don't want to get into this debate, but I'm just saying.
I always look at again, and you have to reference who's voting. You know who the voters are.
Yep.
The coaches and the sports information directors.
Uh-huh.
And if you haven't seen all these games, which some of them haven't.
Yep.
How you gonna put that ballot together?
Exactly.
Statistically, there's no doubt about it in my mind, and I saw Grizzle twice. Grizzle can ball. If I had to vote, she would be my player of the year without a doubt. I think we did a good job to slow her down, but she's just one of those. She's gonna get hers, and you just gotta slow her down if you can. No disrespect to Green at all.
Exactly.
I mean, Green and Grizzle, I think you can say their games are kind of similar. If you look at the stats in terms of where they finish, in terms of in the standings, some people would say, well, look at where UAPB is and look where Florida A&M is. But for me, in watching all these games, to me, Grizzle, even though the stats bear it out, Grizzle to me is the player of the year. I don't have a dog in a fight in this, but if I were voting, it would be no doubt Grizzle would be my vote, despite where Florida A&M is in the standings.
You're right. I could see both arguments there. And I think that's the challenge when you have a team that is so even, which is a plus in terms of trying to defend them and why you get all these W. But in terms of folks that pretty much just look at statistics because they're so busy with everything else, I certainly can see that happen. In fact, I can see where you have a litter with 3 or 4 people of Jackson State players on first team, but neither one of them being the player of the year. So you kind of award it on one side and not on the other. So I can see it. And I think to your point, Bryan, that's going to be interesting to see. Do we get what is traditionally done in terms of folks just kind of looking at the point average and people at the top of the conference? Or are you going to have more folks that have taken a deeper dive? Again, to Charles's point, you got the SIDs and coaches voting. Who do you think they focused on all the year? Obviously, when they scouted and playing the team, but sometimes they only playing some of the teams one time in this new expanded conference. So that can be a challenge in terms of folks kind of taking what we would call the easy way out. I do want to put this out there before I let AD Drew jump in there because I see he has a point, is I see a lot of folks saying they want to get, other people involved. I do want to make it clear because sometimes we become so focused on the SWAC or in other cases the MEAC that this is a traditional thing that happens in every conference where the coaches and SIDs vote for players of the year. This is not something that the SWAC and or the MEAC does differently than any other conference in America. It is the coaches and the SIDs to do this voting. Now, obviously, for your Power 5, they have a lot more people involved in terms of the SIDs, so they can really get into some data and probably be a little more accurate than what you see in the SWAC when they're doing 15 million things literally to try to produce. So, hey, it is what it is. We'll see. Some will be happy, some will be mad. Life will move on. It's the SWAC.
All right, fellas. We know the coaches and the SIDs are the ones making this vote, like Charles and Dr. Cavil have just said. Once again, fellas, I've got to go back to that elephant in the room. Did Zay Green shoot herself in the foot? Because what coach is going to vote for the person that caused all that ruckus in somebody's locker room or was involved in it one way or the other for Conference Player of the Year?
Oh, yeah. I
to be the representative. So those votes,
I don't see that.
Zay Green was probably the clubhouse leader going into February.
Probably. Yep.
Sure.
So, but let's be real. What coach is going to vote for her knowing that could have happened in their locker room?
I agree.
You just lost a lot of
it
coaches.
Becomes even harder, Drew, from this standpoint. They've lost 4 of the last 6 games.
I think that's a bigger,
I think that's going to be the bigger issue and make it easier for them to say no as they falter down the stretch. Now, we may say it's part of that, but I think they'll lean on that more than they'll say, the locker room issue. They're going to say they just didn't finish strong.
So if you just go off of point production, Ariana Grizzle is averaging 2.5 points more than number 3 in the conference once you take Zay Green out, that being Ryan Payne at Prairie View A&M. And she's 3 points clear of Amaya Simmons at Alabama A&M.
Now, I talked to these SIDs. Ain't nobody looking that close. I promise you that. They're going to look and see who the top person is, what their win percentage. Did they make the tournament? Is a team like that? And they're going to be like, check, box, clear.
Hey, D, let me throw something out there at you, though. Is it fair? Is it fair to say for that to hold, for that incident to be held over her head despite her prowess on the court?
Perception is reality, Charles. No, it's not fair. Hell, life ain't fair.
I mean, Cardoza had an incident, but she'll still be first team All SEC, right?
Oh, Zay will be first team All SWAC.
I think those votes were already in.
But Charles, here's the thing. Here's the one thing about yours. I think those All SEC votes were probably already in before the tournament.
Yeah, those votes were already in.
Simple.
Yeah.
The one storyline on the end that I wanted to add was I know you talked. I heard you guys talk about all the other schools. I'm gonna say, how about Southern? Southern University in the non-conference getting 2 Power 5 wins, one of them even being a quad 1 win, and then starting the season off on a hot streak, and then the way it just fell off a cliff where they are a 4
Typical
seed.
Southern.
Their best player.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to. You said that, Drew. You said that, not me.
No, best player got
the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I think this is a
even though it's with a new coach. It's a new coach. Yeah, we understand, but it's just the stigma that Southern falls off in February. And,
right,
and we know it's different. It's different circumstances.
That just happened the last 3 years.
Yeah,
so that's
we know it's different circumstances.
I think that's a little different when you talk about this team because you got a new coach, and you have the addition that the best player obviously has been removed from the team.
Yeah.
So that's a little unique in terms of that. And so I'm fascinated to see next year. If it happens again, AD Drew, then I'm going to say, all right, what's going on in terms of weight room, what's taking place outside.
Too much jambalaya on the bayou.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on there that this happens even after you change coaches.
All right, let's get into
this anomaly.
Let's get into the women's bracket, of course, aka known as the Jackson State Invitational, as it's been renamed appropriately in my definition, because we are all.
Hard to argue with that.
Hey, everyone's chasing the big cats, right? Everyone's chasing the Jackson State Tigers, the 1 seed taking on Prairie View A&M. Let's start with that contest. Of course, as we mentioned, Jackson State and Grambling is the 2 seed taking on Florida A&M. Those are the games that are taking place on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, you've got UAPB against Alabama A&M and Southern and Alcorn. Let's start with Jackson. Let's start with the left side of the bracket. Jackson State, Prairie View. Doc, you brought up an interesting point earlier. We were talking about the margin between Norfolk State and South Carolina State. Prairie View and Jackson State, not that far from it. Obviously, an 8 seed in the SWAC is different than the 8 seed in the MEAC. Obviously. What's your thought on this opening round matchup here for Prairie View? We'll start with Doc and then go down.
I do not see the margin as big, as I said earlier, between Norfolk State and South Carolina State. But I see this margin is pretty big. I mean, you got Grand Canyon and you got other big canyons. They still huge canyons. They just fall off. Then Prairie View is coming in the worst position. They just gave and got the attentions of Jackson State. And Jackson State did not get it done in the tournament last year. They lost to Southern in the semifinal. So this team is going to be focused twice over. They go into the tournament. They on a mission. And the coach can easily say, this is the team Prairie View that had you with 1 point with 2 minutes left in the game. Yeah, miss me with all that. Jackson State, Prairie View will come home. At least I give credit for the women Prairie View and Panthers. Of the 2 teams at Prairie View, they're the team that got in. But unfortunately, it was an 8th seed as they lost late, and they got to face the 5-time regular season champions, Jackson State, all-world, 50-1 in the conference. They're just going to pound Panthers into submission and send and I'll say it so people will get off me because Prairie View folks going to be like, come here, you don't love the Panthers? Yeah, they're going to send my Panthers home, and I'm still going to get love in Jackson because I'm just going to call it.
So Charles Bishop, we'll go to your Jackson State Tigers. Anything we can glean from this opening round matchup? What's the mindset of the Tigers in this tournament in round 1?
I don't think there's any doubt. Prairie View gets Jackson State's attention, and it's something about Jackson State going to the Baby Dome, going to Prairie View, playing them down there. It is always a dogfight, but I like Jackson State.
It was a Monday too, Charles.
It was a Monday as well. Chaos happens on Monday, so you know, I was nervous, Doc. I was sitting up talking about that one.
Yeah, he sent me on the phone. I was like, man, hit me back when there's 30 seconds left. He sent me 4 minutes left in the game. Look, Doc.
I knew it. I knew something was afoot down there. So, but no.
Charles Edmonds, he do you like that sometimes? He texts you with anything just when he sees you.
No, he doesn't do me like that.
That's because y'all Mississippi boys. He you know what I'm saying? You calling for the Braves. I know you from St. Louis, But it's a connection now. He treats you like you're a Mississippi boy, so he's been there long enough. He like you, so he don't mess with you.
Yeah, neutral court. I like Jackson State's women in this. I like I said, Prairie View has gotten their attention, but that chip is actually a boulder on Jackson State's shoulder. So I'm looking forward to March 13th when they take on Prairie View. I think it'll be a pretty big victory for Jackson State.
Charles Edmonds, any thoughts there? You got a chance to see your Braves barely beat this Prairie View team. Any thoughts here? You've seen these two teams. Thoughts here? Any chance that Prairie View can match their success from Monday, or I should say last Monday, coming up here on Wednesday?
Hey, Bryan, when Charles answers that, man, I went over there. Charles wouldn't even give me the radio. He was so excited about that win. I started to take his
If you only knew, guys, what I've been through with that Lady Braves program over the last couple of years, to get a win like that, a game that they would have probably thrown away in any other situation. Nakia Cheatham hit a 40-footer against the clock up to with 30 seconds left. That's the shot of the year for us. So I was just so happy with what this team has been through. So yes, you're right. I was elated to see that because it hadn't happened. Look, I'm gonna say this. The SWAC tournament is a different animal, guys. It's a different animal. This time last year, we're singing the same song. Oh, just hand Jackson State the trophy. Nothing against Jackson State, nothing against the 1 seeds. We know what the 1 seeds are. It's just something about the SWAC tournament where certain things tighten up. And so everybody expects Jackson State to just run roughshod over Prairie View, UAPB, Alabama A&M potentially, and then whoever they play in the championship. Jackson State is a deeper team than they've been in the past. They've got 2 transfers, one Avent from Texas Southern, who is a difference maker. So they've got more pieces, but it's the SWAC tournament. I do think they will get by Prairie View. So to answer your question, I do think they will.
I'm finna say, Charles, if you're going to try to settle
something,
you're talking about Southern, the rival, semifinals, buzzer PD3, you're going to try to compare that to 1-8? Man, get out.
That's what you call
I'm glad you said
radio.
That at the end because you're going to lose all credibility.
I like to just throw stuff out there just for people to pay. Just I mean, because everybody assumes a lot of stuff, and I'm like,
no, you're right. You're right. Just don't do it.
Charles used to fill up dead air in some of the blowouts. That's what that was, y'all. That was that dead air if talk.
It's the SWAC tournament, guys. I've been in a mini SWAC tournament. Yes, most of the time the top dog gets it done. Sometimes they don't. Jackson State will win this game. There's no doubt about it. But I tell you what, if Prairie View comes out ball on fire and puts a little pressure on Jackson State, who knows? I mean, the first 7-8 minutes, who knows? So to answer your question, yes, Jackson State should win this game. Yes.
Quick question, Charles. Just off of your top of your head. On the women's side, how many times in the last 10 years has the number 1 seed lost against 8?
The number 1 seed.
I rest my case.
You got to stutter. You got to stutter.
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, last year, number 1. Last year.
Yeah, but that was in the second round.
That was second round. I said versus he keeps selling me on his semifinals.
Yeah. I can't even remember. So yeah, to your point, yeah. The 1 seed usually gets it done on the women's side. Yes. Yeah. You are correct. I cannot even remember. And it probably, I don't know when the last time it's happened,
Charles,
but that I can remember.
Yeah, I cannot think of a time.
All right, I rest my case. AD Drew, go ahead.
Okay. Since we've all established that Jackson State will win this game, and if there are some people down in Houston who have to fly to Birmingham to watch Prairie View lose, let me give you a few other things that you can do while you're in the Birmingham area. There's a very good comedy club there called the Star Dome. It's one of the premier comedy clubs in the Southeast. I've been there a few times when I've been to Birmingham. Good prices, excellent food, strong adult beverages. Let me give you another thing. There's a Negro League museum right there outside the foot of Regents Stadium.
It's
there.
nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Loosen up.
Please go visit it if you're going to go there.
Hey,
yeah.
Just do not send them to that other city club.
The Robert Trent Jones Golf Course Trail runs through Birmingham.
That was my number 3.
Take your golf.
That was my number 3. The Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail in the state of Alabama is excellent.
And
Any
Charles,
course you play.
Charles Bishop will take your money. He'll go out to golf.
So I just want to give you a few other options, preview Panthers fans, so that if you're going to make the trip to Birmingham, what you could do to fill up the rest of your time while you wait on your return flight on Friday.
Unbelievable. I can't believe we spent this much time talking about this one game. All right. Maybe a more intriguing, interesting matchup is the 4-5 matchup. UAPB, Alabama A&M. Now, we mentioned a little bit earlier some of the struggles UAPB has had. This is the team that has lost, 4 of 6. Up until the last game of the regular season, Alabama A&M had won 5 in a row, including a win over UAPB. They lost to Grambling 60-55. 4-5s, I don't know if they qualify as an upset, but it's an upset. Okay. Well, this might be
not a big one, but it's not
a big one. Okay. What's this one looking like for you? I'll start with you, Charles Edmonds. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
I tell you what, having Alabama A&M, playing 90 miles from home, I think that's important. I think it should be a good crowd for that one. Just saw UAPB the other day. Maya Pete is a beast inside. If they get it inside to her, she's unstoppable. She gets it in too deep, it's too late. She's gonna lay it up. She's gonna wear you out. I'm gonna go with UAPB on this one. I do think Alabama A&M, they're gonna try to get up and down the floor and run a little bit. But if Zay Green gets going, if they got that high-low with Green and Maya Pete, I think they're a very tough team to beat. I'm gonna go with UAPB in this one.
Interesting. Drew, how about you? What's your thoughts on this one?
Charles, you say 90 miles from home for Alabama A&M. Charles, you forget Alabama A&M's largest alumni base lives in the Birmingham area. So you just talk about people driving across town to go support the Bulldogs. Question is, can UAPB get some get-right juice and get back on their winning ways when it counts? Because their backs are against the wall. Now it's one and done. That's going to be the big question. Can UAPB get back to their winning ways? Will Zay Green play?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
I believe. I mean, she played in the last game against Alcorn, so I would think that she should be ready to go in the SWAC tournament.
How effective will she be, Charles? That's the question.
I think she'll be effective. I mean, just watching her, and we talk about this Player of the Year debate. Grizzle has played all 18 conference games. Zay Green has played 14. So if you want to look at that as being a factor in determining Player of the Year, 4 less games, does that make a difference for some of the voters? I don't know. But when Zay Green was rolling, UAPB was rolling. The only hiccups
Go ahead.
The only hiccups are obviously Jackson State. I think if they get Zay Green going, I think, she's the straw that stirs that drink. And if she gets going, I think it makes it easier on everyone else.
I will say this. If it comes down to a one possession ball game and Zay Green is on the court, I have to lean UAPB if it comes down to a one possession ball game and I need somebody to take that last second shot. Go ahead.
Doc.
Yeah, they split this year. Earlier when Pine Bluff, was looking to get in it, they really dominated. 75-67 was that game. That game was at home, but the return trip, and this was obviously post-incident. I guess we have to look at it in terms of the season in those two directions. Alabama A&M, when they needed a win, they got it done at home, and they beat them pretty solid, 8-point victory, 67-59. I think 4-5, 5:30 matchup, which means you're going to have time for the Alabama A&M fans to be in the arena. So they'll be there to cheer on the Bulldogs. Although Pine Bluff is seeing if they can get it done, cut down the nets. They played in the championship game against Southern last year. Played them pretty tight for most of that game. So in a lot of ways, they're going to be focused. With all that said, though, this is my first upset in the SWAC. I'm going with the 5 over the 4.
Me too.
To get it done to move along to the semifinals on Friday.
Charles, where are you? Bishop, where are you?
I think everybody pays attention to Zay Green and Maya Pete, but for me, the X factor for UAPB is Kariah Beck. If Kariah Beck starts getting going, that's when they become a different team to me, because she's that other scoring threat. Everybody's paying a lot of attention to Zay Green, and like you mentioned, Charles, when the ball gets deep into Maya Pete, she becomes a force. But when you start leaving Kariah Beck open and she starts hitting threes, they get scary, and we kind of watched that last year in the SWAC tournament, and I watched it with regards to her this past season, where she can be that real X factor. So, can you stop Amaya Simmons? That becomes a question for UAPB's defense. But Kariah Beck, if her jumper's falling, they get real dangerous.
Yeah.
If.
Doc, Edwin Moore thinks you might have some ulterior motives for running with Alabama A&M, huh?
Edwin Moore said I'm going with the wife. Yeah, you're right.
I forgot all about that part of it.
Excellent,
Edwin is correct. Shout out to Edwin. He's smart. He understands.
Charles, Doc want to sleep in his own bed tonight. That's
I like
that. Said the couch ain't comfortable.
that should be a good matchup, and it's the 5:30 Central, so that's 6:30 Eastern. That'll be a good one. Should be good eyes on it as well. Television. A lot of people getting home from work. You get a chance to watch it if you're not going to be there, but hopefully it'll be a good crowd in the building. We already seen Alabama A&M fans show up. Can you imagine 6,000 Alabama A&M fans showing up like they did for that contest against Alabama State? Interesting.
6,300.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that kind of crowd at the SWAC tournament for that game. Just saying. Okay, next quarterfinal.
Hey, Bryan, before you move off of that, and I know we haven't switched over to it, when does Alabama State play? I'm just curious if Alabama State and Alabama A&M play back-to-back. On the men's side.
I don't know. We're not there yet.
I was just curious to see what kind of crowd we may have in the building.
They play the late game on Thursday in terms of the men.
No, they play. The men play Wednesday. They play Wednesday.
Okay, so it's Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, Alabama State is the 8th.
That's what I'm saying. It's the late game on Wednesday.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if those two teams were playing back to back.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Alabama State play 8:30, so they play after Alabama A&M and Pine Bluff. They play at 5:30.
All right. The first game of the entire tournament is the quarterfinal matchup between the 2 seed, the Grambling State Lady Tigers, and the Florida A&M Rattlers. Of course, featuring potential SWAC Player of the Year, Ariana Grizzle. The interesting thing about this contest, some people may say, the 2-7 is not an interesting matchup. But what is interesting is that Florida A&M played a triple overtime game against Grambling, the first meeting. And the second meeting at Grambling is a game that Florida A&M out-rebounded Grambling. Your stat, Drew. They out-rebounded them by 20. Unfortunately, they shot 1 of 17 from behind the arc. Yes, that's right.
That was another one of my stats.
Yeah, so I don't know what to make. I just know this will be an interesting 2-7 matchup. But Grambling is deep. Grambling is Grambling's got maybe the second. They have the second longest winning streak, if I'm not mistaken.
10 in a row.
Yeah, 10 in a row. And I mean, any other year, we're looking at them like, hey, all praise to Grambling. But of course, the Jackson State Invitational is here. 18 in a row is hard to top. Drew, start with you. I don't know if there's an upset in mind, but what's your thoughts on this matchup between Grambling and Florida A&M in the opening round?
Well, in a one-and-done situation, you always have to look at the best player on the court. And whether she wins the SWAC Player of the Year or not doesn't matter in this game. She will be the best player on the court when it comes to putting that ball in the bucket. We know she can score, but she's a volume scorer. She's not a high efficiency scorer. And you're talking about an individual player going up against the team that is number 2 in defense, only the Jackson State in the conference, where their opponents only shoot 36% against them. So how we know Grizzle's going to get her 20. How many shots will she have to take
That's
to
a question.
get that 20?
Whole lot.
That's the question against this Grambling State's defense. And if she shoots anything less than 45% in this particular ball game, FAMU has no chance. She has got to be highly efficient with her shots. And here's the other thing. Do you let her get hers and shut everybody else down? Because we've seen games where FAMU has only had 3 players score.
Yeah.
We've seen that. So let Grizzle get hers, shut everybody else down. You can still win this game by 20 if you grab
it. Doc, what's your take on this one?
Oh, I'll make this one quite easy. The A&M schools are going to go 1 and 2. This is going to be the other one that goes home quickly, like in Prairie View. All that stuff sounds good.
Sending us back to the farm, Doc, to go do some ag work.
Yep, they're going back to one of them highest hills over there in Florida. You don't have to worry about it. It'll be a quick trip. It's going to be like the first time when the men went to the tournament. They were all hyped. I thought more highly of this team than this one. This one is going to be quick, fast, and hurry. Don't turn the keys off to the bus. Let it come on.
All right. Enough, Doc. Enough.
Hey, hold on. Hey, Doc.
Why I have a lot of Rattler fans out there love me too, and some of them might fall off. But as I said, I'm going to call it like I see it. Rattlers, y'all look better next year. This is the first step. Don't get all excited. It's the first step. You know, you got to go down there. You got to get your head busted. Then you come back a year or 2 later. Like the tournament, you make you run. It don't happen the first time. Nope, it does not happen like that.
Hey, Doc, why all 3 ag schools some type of hill? I'm just always really curious about that. All 3 of them have somewhere in the hill in their moniker when you talk about their school.
That's the question of the day.
Charles Bishop, any thoughts here on this matchup?
I'm going to go with Grambling. No team is playing better basketball, not named Jackson State other than Grambling, 10 in a row. But it's very interesting to me that if I'm not mistaken, Grambling and Florida A&M played a triple overtime thriller.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah. So, it is. They match up seemingly pretty well, but I got to go with Grambling in this. They for them to not have a top scorer like in the top 15 or 18 in the SWAC, they just do it with great team ball, great defense, and watching them up close. They're a really solid team.
It's funny you point that out. The 2 top teams, the 1 and 2 seed, don't have, now I could be wrong here. Where's the highest scorer in? I mean, we're talking 2 teams that don't have an individual like even when Jackson State was rolling with the with Amisha and Deja, right? You knew you had 1 and 2. You had the 1-2 punch. Both of these teams, Jackson State and Grambling, just solid teams. 10 deep. 10 deep. It's just like it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
To your point, Brian, I mean, Avon is Jackson State's leading scorer, and she's 12th in the conference in scoring.
Yeah.
So that tells you that it's more of a collective effort. Grambling's my alma mater, first-year coach. I like Grizzle. Grambling's number 2 in defense, and I've heard a number of coaches, including our coaches, say in the tournament, the game slows down. It's all about defense. So if that numbers hold true, I think Grambling definitely will slow down Grizzle enough, and they've got enough firepower where I think they'll be able to get it done and power through.
Well, don't sleep on coach pressure. They got a coach over there that she. I can't wait till they start.
You talk too early. You told me year two. Give it another year.
I know. Okay. Moving on. Down to the other side of the bracket. Southern versus Alcorn, the 3-6 matchup. Charles Edmonds, I'm gonna start with you. The defending tournament champs. That's who Alcorn gets. Alcorn, look, As G would say, the big bad Braves. What are y'all gonna do in this one, Charles? Break this one down.
Nate Kilbert loves this matchup. One of the storylines in this game, former Lady Brave Kayla Billow transferred from Alcorn to Southern University. She had an impact in that first meeting. We had a double-digit lead in that first meeting. One of our bad quarters, something that we've had that's cost us 3 or 4 games this year. I think if the way the Lady Braves are dinging up, top 2, top 3 in terms of points given up, and that's the reason why we're in the tournament, because of our defense. If we can slow Southern down enough, we got Destiny Brown, who's a top 4 scorer. Got a couple of players that can get it done on the boards. Cheatham can get it done. Zanaya White, a top 7 or 8 scorer. If the Lady Braves can get up and down and run, put the ball in the bucket, I think the Lady Braves could potentially run Southern out of the gym if everything clicks. But it's been 3 years since we've been in a tournament. So this is a new experience. And so I think, nerves will play a factor. And I think Southern's experience will play a factor. I got Alcorn. I think we're on a nice little run right now. I think this is a matchup that I think will surprise a lot of people. Nate Kilbert's comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable with it too. So, of course, I'm going with the Braves, but Southern's got the experience. They got Coach Funches. It's going to be a heck of a game.
Charles Bishop, what do you like in this matchup? Who you going with an upset too?
I would like to go with an upset, but I can't this time. There's something about Southern in the tournament. I don't know. They flip a switch. I don't know what it is. They've won 4 in a row. They're playing good ball going down the stretch. They worry me for whatever reason. Maybe it's because it's just that Jackson State Southern thing, but they worry me going into this tournament. They're playing good ball, and I think they could. Like Charles said, is that experience thing. They got some ladies that have been there, done that before, and in this situation, I think Southern Jaguars might come out on top.
Doc, what about you?
Yes, this is my second upset of the tournament. Third upset in terms of the first round between the two. I have the lower seed 6, the Braves, getting it done against the Jaguars. So Charles can relax a little bit. He doesn't have to worry about seeing the Jaguars in the championship game. Yes, they have tournament experience, but I just think the Braves playing really well. Obviously, at home, they lost by 3. Southern Jaguars certainly will be well done in this contest. But it's just something about these early games, early matchups that you still try to be comfortable in terms of the gym, if you would, on the floor. Obviously been there before, but I still think coming back, you still have to get comfortable a little bit in terms of that matchup. So this is that 11 a.m. game. So you're not going to have that large amount of fans in there to be able to get there that early. And so I see the upset with the Braves getting it done against the Jaguars to throw things really off in the SWAC tournament for the women's bracket side.
AD, what you got?
Look, we know tournament time, shooter percentages naturally go down because of the pressure, because of defense. So when you look at defense, Alcorn, their opponents are shooting 37%. Southern, their opponents are shooting 41%. Advantage, Alcorn. Go to my famous rebounding stat. And when it comes to rebounding, once again, Alcorn has the advantage. 35 rebounds a game. Southern last in the league at 31 rebounds per game. Advantage, Alcorn. So rebounding is hustle. Defense is hustle. When you just look at the stats, then Alcorn has the advantage when it comes to that. So if we're gonna get an upset, I'm like, Doc, this is the game that could do it. Alcorn can get those little small things, can get those 1 or 2 additional offensive rebounds, force those bad shots by Southern, and take advantage of it.
Okay, let's move through the next question quickly, because at this point, we all seem to agree, well, almost, between Jackson State and Grambling being in the semis. Little split, 50-50 between whether it's Alcorn or Southern and UAP and the Alabama A&M. The semifinals is where Jackson State got tripped up last year. I will ask this question, and between Jackson State and Grambling, who might get tripped up in the semifinals? I'll start with you, Charles Edmonds.
Between Jackson State and Grambling, who will get tripped up? Looking at the brackets, that's a really good question. If I were just that really is. I mean, watching all the teams, I'm gonna say if there's a team that would get tripped up is Grambling, and I only would say that because of first year coach getting that win, different setup and situation, just not being in that situation before where Jackson has. Jackson would get out. It could be Grambling and Southern in that next game.
Yeah.
Could be. I'm just throwing all the scenarios. Of course, I want the Braves to get there, but it could be Southern and Grambling. Who knows? I'm gonna say if there's a team that could get tripped up in that semis, is Grambling, just because of the lack of experience, first year coach and all. I just think the intangibles, something I always look at. I would say Grambling.
So what I think you're saying is that Southern Alcorn is a tougher matchup potentially for Grambling either way, whichever way it rolls, huh?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Charles Bishop, what about you?
Definitely Grambling. I mean, when you take a look at it, I think it's tailor-made for Jackson State to get to the championship from the standpoint of if they see UAP or Alabama A&M. Both of these teams have never really challenged Jackson State. With Zay Green on the court, without Zay Green on the court, UAPB has not been able to match up with Jackson State. The Jackson State, I believe, beat Alabama A&M 71-40 something. So I think it's a great bracket for Jackson State to get to a championship game.
Doc?
No doubt about it. It's Grambling. Jackson State has done what they needed to do to have the number one seed, and it fell in their way that teams that are not playing that well coming out of that side of the bracket. I mean, obviously anybody can get hot for a game and get upset, but to do it in the semifinals, I can't see it getting done. And so I'd have to go Grambling. Obviously, you have the rivalry thing there, 2-3. So that certainly is one that could show a matchup. If my upset of Alcorn over Southern doesn't get done, I can see Southern Jaguars obviously getting to a championship game to face Jackson State, which would really get Charles intrigued in that matchup. But I can also see Alcorn, the Braves. I mean, getting it done in Grambling, that means they have defeated Southern. They're going to feel good about themselves. And so even if it's the Braves that get into the semifinals based on the upset I said, I still could see the Braves getting it done against Grambling. But if I had to pick the one, the likely upset would be Grambling, and it would probably be Southern getting it done over Grambling to get to a championship game on Saturday.
Drew, what about you?
Can I go with neither?
Oh, sure. No
Okay.
trip ups, huh?
I'm really going with neither. I mean, you're talking the two hottest teams in the SWAC. 18 in a row, 10 in a row. Be 19 and 11 come Friday. These two teams know how to win. At least in this season, they know how to win. If you're going to put my feet to the fire, yeah, a Southern Grambling matchup would scare the crap out of me. If I'm a Grambling man, I'll tell Charles is a Grambling alum, so I know he has some feelings for Grambling still. But that would be the only slight thing that could possibly trip that I could see. But I really think it's going to be the G-men and the Tigers in the finals. Well, the G-ladies and the Tigers.
Right. There are only two teams that have lost to Jackson State by less than 10 points. You guys have any idea who they are?
Grambling and Prairie View.
Well, I guess there are three. So yeah, you got me on the Grambling one. I looked past that. So Grambling, yes.
Bethune-Cookman?
Not Bethune-Cookman. Southern, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Grambling by 5, Alcorn by 8, and Southern, and then Grambling by 8. So, but that's again, those are the 3 closest matchups, single-digit wins for Jackson State.
And where are they at in the bracket, Bryan?
All on the other side. Exactly. So you're only gonna have to deal with one. So I guess there it is. There it is. You only gotta deal with one.
Potentially.
So I don't know. So the last question here on the women's has to do with if Jackson State wins this, what seed might you predict Jackson State? And if Jackson State is not winning, who will win it? Drew, I'll start with you.
Jackson State wins, I think they could get as high as a 14. And should Jackson State lose, I think Southern would be the only team that could beat it because they have the mantra, they have the formula. They are not scared of Jackson State. So if there's one team that could beat them, should they make it to the championship game, it would be Southern.
Doc?
I have to agree that although I call the upset, this is where I get my Jaguar friends back. If they make it to the championship game, that's the team that certainly is going to come in with the confidence they can play with Jackson State. Obviously, they won it last year in the semifinals against them, so it's not like they have to go far back in terms of that matchup. The game, as you said, was a 5-point game in Jackson. Coach does a really good job in terms of defending and playing Jackson State relatively well. So he knows what they like to do and makes them a little more comfortable. So that would be the matchup that you would want to see in terms of the most interest and potentially be the closest game in the championship. But I just think Jackson State is going to be focused in regards to what took place last year. So whether it's Grambling, Southern, Alcorn, or even FAMU, coming out of the other season, I don't see Jackson State stumping their toe twice. I think they're going to find a way to get it done, which means ultimately they could get potentially a 14 seed, but it's probably likely they're going to be at a 15 seed. Again, it's going to be determined based on what do the other one-bid leagues do in regards to the championship in those one-bid leagues come out, or do you have some upsets that allow them to be able to take advantage of it and slide to that 14 seed, maybe even a 13.
Bishop?
Yeah, I think definitely Jackson State. They should undoubtedly win this tournament again. The team that scares me most, like I said earlier, was Southern. And Southern Jackson State, it is what it is. It's a rivalry that's just I don't care if it's tiddlywinks. These two schools, they go at each other, and like you guys mentioned, I think Southern isn't intimidated by the success that Tamika Reed has had in this tournament. I think Jackson State could get a 14 seed, and maybe some of it is just based on recent memory in terms of what Jackson State did against LSU, to where they could slide up and get a 14 seed if they should win this tournament.
And Charles Edmonds.
I'm sorry, my computer went out on me. Repeat that question again for me, sir.
The question was, if Jackson State wins, what is their seed in the national tournament? If they were to lose, who's it going to be? Who's going to get that win against them in the championship game?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Southern University. I'm gonna go with Southern University or Grambling. I think both those teams match up pretty well. I know Jackson wants another crack at Southern again to get to win it all. So I'm gonna say the way Grambling's playing right now, I'll say Grambling. I think if Jackson State wins the whole shebang, man, these committees and just I got to think about what Jackson did in non-conference, because I think that plays a factor in these seedings. I want to say a 15, no higher than a 14, maybe even a 16. And it just, again, these committees, you got to do some stuff in non-conference against these quad 2 quality non-conference games. Now, yeah, they went 18-0, but then you got to look at the rest of our conference. You know, if the rest of our conference were strong, then it would help. Now, Jackson did get a vote for the top 25. So I don't know if that'll make a difference as a 14 and now 15 or 16. But if Jackson wins it, I do think either a 14 to a 16. If I were just to bet something on it, I would say 15.
All right. Let's take a short break. I know, Bishop, you got to jet out. I don't know if you can hang in there to talk about the men with us, Charles Edmonds. But I'm going to take a short break, and we'll come right back, talk about the SWAC men's bracket here in just a moment. Hang in there with us. You're watching the MEAC SWAC basketball preview show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We'll be back in just a moment.
We're back. It's time for the 2024 Urban NerdCon. Join us in Atlanta, Georgia, April 26th through the 28th at the Cortland Grand Hotel. Special guests include Underworld creator Kevin Grievous, Gary Gray from Fairly Odd Parents, from Nickelodeon, Giovanni Samuels, the Science Machine Michael Green, the Sci-Fi Sisters, and from Spaceballs and Star Trek Voyager, Tim Russ.
Hi, I'm Tim Russ. Join me April 26th through the 28th at the Cortland Grand Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia for the Urban NerdCon. Our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone con. I'll see you there. Live long and prosper.
Visit theurbannerdcon.net to get your buy one, get one free badges before the price increases. Remember, our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap, and I'm sure Dr. Cavil will be probably joining us back here shortly. Joining us now. Oh, there we go. There's Doc. All right, there we go. Doc is back. Charles Edmonds also joining us of Alcorn State Sports Radio, co-host of the Carlos Brown Show on Saturday. All right, let's get to the men's bracket here. Want to quickly go through the men because this is an interesting, as much as the Jackson State Invitational is on the women's side, I think the men is going to be fascinating given what we have. Of course, your regular season champions, the G-men, Grambling State, for the second straight year, if I'm not mistaken, won the regular season title.
They were co-champions with Alcorn last year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. Co-champs, yes. I want to make sure I get that right. And of course, there's our bracket. Now, you know me, guys. I love my odds. This is great action for those of you who are able to and are interested. I just looked up the DraftKings odds, the tournament odds on who is the favorite. Who does Vegas say is the favorite to win the SWAC tournament? Well, the favorite is Alcorn State, plus 280. They are the hot team, right? What is it, 9 wins in a row?
Yes.
9 wins in a row. What's fascinating is the team with the second highest odds, or second lowest odds, if you want to say it that way, Southern University plus 300. Very close to Alcorn. That's Southern's the 4 seed. Grambling, the 1 seed plus 350. And Texas Southern, of course, who's won this tournament 7 of the last 10 years, plus 475.
Man, if you don't go put your money on Texas Southern, I don't know.
Look, I'm running to the bank.
Death, taxes, and Texas Southern winning the SWAC. That's the bottom in Texas.
That is great value. Now, last year when Texas Southern won, it was plus 1,300. So just to put that in perspective, but they were an 8 seed last year. Didn't they just barely make it into the tournament a year ago?
Yep.
Yeah, last day.
Yeah, this year I think is a different story. This is a good-looking Texas Southern team that they lost to Alcorn, and that's probably why the 2 and the 3 are the way they are. But anyway, we'll talk. Excuse me, we'll talk about that in a moment. And if you're so enthused, you Jackson State folks out there, plus 800. So but anyway, we've got our top 4. All right. So I let's go through the matchups here quickly, gentlemen. Of course, that first matchup, Grambling and Alabama State. You mentioned this the other day, Drew, but this game went into double overtime just on Saturday. So these two teams just got finished playing each other. And who was it that Alabama State knocked off by winning that game? Who was it they knocked out of the tournament?
UAPB.
Pamela, UAPB, the golden line.
Yeah, so they knocked UAPB out, got themselves in, and here they are in this contest. Grambling has won the 3 previous games prior to Saturday's loss. Any chance of a repeat from the double overtime game on Saturday? Charles, we'll start with you.
Oh, look, I tell you what, congratulations to Alabama State. I mean, they were left for dead. I wrote them off. I thought UAPB would get in and maybe Alabama State would be out. But, hey, they got it done, and they're in the tournament. And a very tough out, I think. The way they just played Grambling, how tough they played. Even though Grambling's playing really well, to me, there are 3 storylines in this tournament, guys. You got the regular season champ in Grambling. You got the defending tournament champs in Texas Southern. Then you got the hottest team in the league at Alcorn. All 3 of those in the bowl. So which one's going to come out on top? I like Grambling because of what they've done in the regular season. I think they won the regular season in New Jersey when they had that, and UAPB, a team that didn't make the tournament, beat Grambling. And then they went to New Jersey, beat Alcorn, beat Jackson, and they just took off from there. So Grambling's playing really well. They're the regular season champs. I do think Alabama State will give them a test, but I do think the experience of Grambling, and even though you talked about Medlock, I do think Grambling is on a mission, kind of like Jackson State's women's team are on a mission. So I'm going with Grambling in this one.
Doc, what about you? Any chance of an upset, 1-8?
Yeah, it's a chance at upset. I mean, even in the first matchup that was in Grambling, this was only a 6-point game. Alabama State was playing much better at the time. Obviously, they did everything to get the last victory at home, where it's always tough to play in the Acadome. Charles will tell you about that. Going that distance is just a tough place to play. Madluck's son, coach's son, head coaching their program. The problem you get with Alabama State, again, they have some players that are talented, but sometimes they disappear. And although these matchups have been close where they split, I have to give the edge to Grambling. I think they're really focused in terms of coming back. They played in the championship game last year. They came back focused, got it done in the regular season. So I have to give the edge to Grambling. I think it'll be a relatively close game, but being there before, I think Grambling finds a way to pull it out.
How about you, Drew?
I was really trying to find statistically a reason why Alabama State can win this particular matchup. And I think I may have found it, man.
Okay.
Offensive rebounding.
There you go. Your stat.
Alabama State leads the conference in offensive rebounding at 14-4. Grambling, 9-9. because of that one stat, Alabama State can hang around. And if you let a team that's not supposed to play with you hang around down the stretch, anything can happen. Especially with a team that's playing with house money. Here, Alabama State didn't even think they were going to be in the tournament this week. So they're playing with house money. Let them be hanging around come that last media timeout. Potential, I don't think it's going to happen, but the potential is there. They do have a puncher's chance.
All right. I'm not so bold. I'm gonna keep it chalk there with Grambling. Yeah. I mean, hey, Alabama State's playing with house money in this opportunity. So anything might happen. Edwin Moore says. Basically, Edwin says all the games are toss-up. So that's an interesting take.
I agree with more. When you start looking at these matchups, and AD will give you all the stats that will let you know how close these games. But if you just go with the matchups, you see that many of these games are close in terms of teams splitting the matchups. Even if they swept, the games were 4-6 point games. So it's not like there's a huge margin like we saw on the women's side, whether that was Norfolk State or or Jackson State. These games, both on the MEAC and the SWAC, are going to be ones that you really should be entertained. There's just not the same margin difference between the teams. You give credit to Grambling or Alcorn because they've been able to win those close games more than any team. But you get to a tournament, it's a little different. It's a one game take all, and it gets tight as things go down the stretch. It's going to be a fascinating tournament to call. Somebody's going to get upset, but I don't see anything that is just clear to where I get the upset. So I might go chalking this and just scratch my head and trying to figure out why I couldn't find the upset.
The 4-5 matchup is interesting. Southern, Bethune. Of course, as noted, Southern with the two very good road non-conference wins, the great start, losing your best player, but they still managed to finish 12-6. Bethune is 11-7. Was interesting. Bethune swept the season series, including winning one of them in overtime by 2 points. Bethune has won three of the last. So Bethune has won the last three matchups. So that's 2 this year, 1 last year, and Bethune has won 4 of the last 5 against Southern. Here's another good 4-5 matchup, Doc. What do you got? Who you got coming out of this one?
Man, it's hard. This was hard. This is the one I wanted to say was an upset, Bethune-Cookman. But as you look at it, even though the Wildcats are the 5 seed in terms of how they handle the Southern, you would say that this is one you would look at the upset. But I'm going to go chalk. I'm going to go with Southern in terms of this matchup. Just too close to call, so I'm going to go with the ranking.
Drew, how about you?
These two teams, looking at the numbers, are so close in all of the numbers. A lot of numbers that back to each other, or very little separation when you actually look at the number. Maybe a team between them, but you're talking like 0.3 or 0.4 between them on a particular stat line. It's just something about Bethune. Where Bethune is on, they are probably one of the scariest teams on the men's side.
Yep.
The thing with Bethune has been the consistency. Can Bethune stay consistent? I'm gonna go opposite, Doc. I'm gonna lean towards the upset. I think with Reggie Theus having been around a little while, he's going to find a way to get his guys ready and have his guys playing and peaking at the right time as somebody who's gone through these wars both on the college level and the professional level, and understand that it's the marathon, not the sprint. And now, using that marathon analogy, now you're doing that kick coming down to the tape. I think Bethune is getting ready to go into that kick, and and steal a game, possibly two.
Bethune lost last year by 15 to Grambling State. So as you said, Drew, getting that experience from a year ago, they might be ready. They might be ready. Goes with that theory Doc said. You gotta go in and get your head kicked in the first time, and then the next time you come around, you're a little more seasoned and ready for it, huh?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. The one matchup that is statistically not even close, but then again, if all these games are toss-ups, this is the one that I might scratch my head about. It's this 2-7 matchup between Alcorn and Alabama A&M, because this is the one that's been real lopsided of late. And Charles will tell you that. Alcorn has won, obviously they're coming into this game on a 9-game winning streak. They beat Alabama A&M earlier in the year. I think it was the only time they played them, 74-71. And Alcorn has won the last 5 meetings dating back to 2021. So that would be all under Coach Bussey, if I'm not mistaken, right, Charles?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You are correct.
Yeah. I don't know. Charles, you tell us here. What's your thoughts? What's Alcorn State looking like here going into this contest against Alabama A&M?
Well, we're on a 9-game winning streak, and if you look at some of these games, minus UAPB, we've been down in the last 7 or 8 minutes, and we have been able to get stops. Jackson State, Valley, and so if you just go down the streak, we've been able to pull games out of the ashes. Landon Bussey is very concerned. He stresses defense in the tournament. This Alabama A&M team, we saw them in game 2, 65-all game with a minute and a half left. We lost the lead in that game, but we went on a 6-0 run in a 30-second span, and that was the difference in the game. They had a 3 late that they missed. We got out of Huntsville with a victory. I think if our defense can just improve, I think we've got enough scoring with Jeremiah Gambrell and company. Our scoring is up, but our defense is lapsing a bit. And to win the tournament, you got to get some stops. So I think with the tournament experience, yeah, we got upset in the first round last year by Texas Southern. This team has a little bit of tournament experience, talking about Alcorn, Alabama A&M. I think, getting in 7 seed, they could be tough playing close to home. But I think the Braves defense improves, slows down A&M enough, and we find a way to win the game.
Drew, the Braves gonna have any trouble with this one?
Well, when you think of a Landon Bussey coach team, you think of defense first. But for some reason this year, Alcorn State is middle of the pack in defense. We've seen them where they've been top 2, top 3 in defense in the SWAC up under Coach Bussey. Alabama A&M, though they're in the bottom third of the conference in offense at 67.6 points per game, Alcorn State gives up 69.6 points per game. So that's like that's a toss-up. That's a 1-possession ball game right there when you compare Alabama A&M's offense to Alcorn State's defense. Like Charles said, can Alcorn get that stop that they will need down the stretch, both in the first half and the second half? Those stops down the stretch at the end of the first half are also critical going in, because those are the things that carry momentum into the locker room and bring you out in the second half. Yes, I think they get it done. Would it shock me? Not if Alabama A&M can get about 3,000 people in the Bartow Arena to cheer them on. It could definitely push them over the edge for that 1 or 2 possessions that they're going to need it.
Interesting. Doc, any angles that you might see a 7 knocking off a 2 here?
I told you I'm trying to find a game I can call my upset on the inside. It's all of these games literally could be an upset. As Charles Edmonds just broke down the game early this year, which ultimately was a 3-point victory, how close it was going down the stretch of that game. It was in Huntsville. This is a little further away, 2:00 game. So you can have folks that may take a late lunch or half a day and get out for this matchup. And so you could have a decent crowd in there, but not if it was a night game. So with that being said, I'm going to go chalk again. I'm going to go with the Braves. This is going to be one of the first years that I go chalk in terms of the quarterfinals for the men, which means you'll probably get all upsets, but I'm going to go with number 2 in terms of this matchup.
Okay, the 3-6 matchup, interesting matchup. Texas Southern, 13-5 record. Jackson State, just 2 games behind them, 11-7. That's interesting. That tells you how far of a difference there is between 3 and 6. 2 games. Okay,
not a lot.
Not a lot at all. Jackson State won the meeting back on January 22nd, 73-64. Texas Southern got the payback at home, 80-70. So the team split during the season. The last time they met in Birmingham, just two years ago, March 9th. Yeah, Texas Southern won 54-50. They also won the year before that, 84-81. So again, a 4-point game and a 3-point game.
And one of those games was an overtime.
Okay, yeah, that must have been the one in 21 where it was 84-81. So Texas Southern 2-0 over the last 3-4 years. Woo! Who do you got in this one, Doc? Texas Southern, Jackson State. Any chance of an upset?
Yeah, certainly another chance of the upset. These are relatively close games, even though at the end of both of these games, you probably got one of the largest margins you've got in the games that we kind of analyzed thus far. But they were close going up to that. You could see, as Kerry talks about, chaos taking place. But it's just something about Texas Southern tournament time. They know how to turn it in, turn it on, turn it in, and turn it upside down, if you would. So they come in with the pretty solid seed, playing solid. They have a couple of injuries that you want to be concerned about. Granger, one of their defensive stoppers, is hurt his knee and hadn't played in the last couple of games, but they're pretty deep. They're one of the deeper teams they had over the last couple of years. PJ is a little bit banged up, but now they got Essay that has been going off. He had 34 points in a tough loss a couple of games ago. So they have the ability to score different ways of the floor, and something tells me that the Tigers are going to win. And I was going to say both teams are Tigers. I was going to take the way out, but y'all caught me, so I'm going to go with Texas Southern in terms of the matchup. It's easy to go this way. This is where my check comes from, so I'll stick with that.
All right. Fascinating storylines, and I know we're pressed against time, so we still got to quickly talk about the MEAC men. So I'll just ask this one question. There are 3 strong – actually – I was very surprised to see Southern at plus 300. I'll be honest. I didn't think they would be one of the top 3 favored, but they're number 2 according to Vegas. If I gave you $100, Doc, who would you put that $100 on? Where would you put your money? Would you put it at Grambling plus 280, Southern plus 300, Alcorn at plus, was it 400, Drew? Is that what I said?
Something and like then, that. 480 or something like that.
And hold on, I got it right here. 350. Okay, so Alcorn 280, Southern at 300, Grambling at 350, Texas Southern at 475. That means putting 100 down on Alcorn would win you 280. Putting 100 on Texas Southern would win you 475.
Man, I'm going all in Texas Southern. I want the 480.
Not a bad bet. Not a bad bet. What about you, Drew?
I mean, I'm taking the longest odds, and it's not just because they're the longest odds, but it's actually the one that I feel will be best for me to win, and that's going to be Texas Southern. We don't call it the Texas Invitational for nothing.
Right, and obviously that's where my check comes from, so I'm pulling for Texas Southern as in the tournament. Wouldn't be surprised, and I'll be on the plane for the tournament if they make it there, but I do have a sentimental spot for the Grambling. They haven't been able to get to the NCAA. They've had 2 great seasons. They played for a championship last year and was played well, as Texas Southern just knows what's to do it. But if a team, if Grambling finds a way to get it done, I'll kind of say job well done.
I too, like you guys, would put my hard-earned money on Texas Southern, but I got a feeling this might be the year that Alcorn finally gets over the hump. They've had some very good teams the last couple years, and I mean, just come up short, whether it be in the championship game or the first round last year. This might be the year where they catch everybody because the expectation is low.
My upset team is on the other side of the bracket, Bryan, and that's gonna be that team on the beach.
Ooh,
that's a good one. Like I said, this is gonna be a great tournament to watch because any team can find a way to get it done. I think any of these teams can get 3 victories in a row once they get rolling.
Yeah. Very quickly, jumping back over to the MEAC side of things. We're going to go quickly here. And again, we got to thank Charles Edmonds for joining us. He probably had to jump off. I know he was having some technical issues. So we appreciate him and Charles Bishop for jumping in. The standard over in the MEAC is Norfolk State. I mean, right now they have really set themselves far and apart among the others, made it real challenging for some teams. Did you guys know all 4 of these matchups occurred
Saturday
on
Thursday?
Well, I don't know what day that was.
No, I'm sorry.
February 24th. So if you want to go look at, and literally all 4 of them happened previously on February 24th, 2024, 2/24/24. So if you want to go look at, well, what did Norfolk State and Coppin do the last time they played? Well, just go back and look. Norfolk State won by 2. How about North Carolina Central and Maryland Eastern Shore? Oh, Central won by 33. Howard and Morgan? What about Howard and Morgan? Howard by 6, 78-72. South Carolina State, Delaware State too? Oh, yes. 69-62. So 3 of the 4 matchups were 7 points or less. The only blowout was North Carolina Central. Looking at these matchups, Doc, where's your opening round upset at?
Oh, opening round upset. It would have to be Morgan State over Howard, the 4-5. Obviously, that's the easy way to go. But that's the one that I'd put out there in terms of those matchups. But all these games are going to be tough, grounded out games. Styles make fights, as we said, and that's what we had in the MEAC all year long. You know, some of the teams matched up differently against teams that you wouldn't think that the games would be that close, but they would go down just because Styles makes the fight. So as we talked about the SWAC being one to watch, you can tune right into the MEAC. If you can find a way to watch these games, I know a lot of people have work. Other folks are on break in terms of spring break. Take advantage of it. These games, if you can't get there, certainly understand what that means. Other responsibilities, but you need to have these games on ESPNU in terms of watching all these games. Some of these times you're going to need to have 2 of your laptops or 2 of your iPads, whichever you have, or one in the other. Have them both on, and some of the games will cross during the day. And just keep your eyes on these matchups. I'll probably go chalk in this one as well because they're just so close that I don't have anything that pushes me to say one team or the other. So these are one of the years when I'm looking at the SWAC and the MEAC as we focus on the MEAC in this one a little more intensely than I have in the past, where I tend to kind of look at semifinals, certainly final matchups to see what's going down. I'm watching this from quarterfinals, tip-off start to the end.
Drew, how about you?
If I'm going to pick an upset, I'm going to go with that 3-6 game, Delaware State, South Carolina State. Delaware State has been sneakily good. They've been good at times. They've been good at spurts, pulling off, getting wins against some of the top teams in the conference. So if that's going to be my upset, that's where I'm going to see it at. But I've got, and I'm going to save some time. I'm going to take this out a little bit. I've got Central and Norfolk in the final, and I've got to go with the Fighting Josh Sims if I should get that matchup in the finals.
Check this out about that Delaware State team. You know, we see where they finished 6th in the league. And while the SWAC had an overall winning record on the men's side preseason in terms of about 5-6 matchups, SWAC had the record. Delaware State beat the number 1 seed Grambling. That was in that Atlanta, had something to say classic back in November. So it's very early. They won that matchup while it was close throughout the game. They pulled away late and won 71-63. Well, if that's not enough, they come back and they play in the Brock Challenge where Delaware State defeats Bethune-Cookman 72-64. So you talking about the SWAC killer is Delaware State. Too bad they're playing in the MEAC tournament because we certainly say they would have a hell of a chance in the SWAC. But with that being said, I'm going to go with South Carolina State Bulldogs in that matchup over Delaware State, although they find a way to get it done against the SWAC this season.
Yeah, I agree with you on the South Carolina. Look, it's interesting that Delaware State did that, but when I looked at this matchup between these two teams, South Carolina State won both matchups this year. They've won 5 of the last 7, 10 of the last 13. South Carolina State is honestly, I think, and I know they played North Carolina Central tough, but South Carolina State might be that team that could find themselves in the championship game. And I think it's worth a look. When you look at the odds, they're the third shortest odds to win at plus 550. North Carolina Central being the second shortest at plus 220, and Norfolk State at plus 180, which has actually gone down because when I looked at it 2 days ago, Norfolk State was plus 200. So that means people have been putting in some money on Norfolk. But South Carolina State might be that team that could find a way to get themselves into the championship game. But again, I think Norfolk State again. Now, I gave you guys that interesting stat about the regular season champion winning the tournament. Here on the men's side, that run has been 4 consecutive years. Of course, excluding the COVID year, that either the regular season or the co-regular season champ has won the tournament. So kind of looking good for Norfolk State if you follow the trend, but that's that.
This is so much of a challenge for me for Norfolk State. Usually you go in and you know what you're going to get over the last couple of years. Joe Bryan, they all but had that game against Howard last year. Obviously that late turnover that will haunt Norfolk State Spartans for a long time, where they had wrestled with Howard and had it, and then you get just a turnover on the inbound where the guard went left and the passer thought he was going left, threw it left. They get the turnover. Howard scores late and wins the game. But this year it's a whole new team. So you get credit for Norfolk getting it done in the regular season. But the tournament and how many close games they had in the regular season, it's just going to be a challenge for me to see them finding a way to get it done. And so I'm fascinating to see, and that's where I could agree with AD, seeing South Carolina State coming out of there because they played well against Central. They have that side of the bracket, and you can see that Norfolk State Howard game being intriguing. As I talked to you about Delaware State, Howard's on the other side. Howard played in the Chris Paul Classic, and I got to see that matchup against Texas Southern as I flew in from Atlanta during the Celebration Bowl on Saturday to watch that game on Sunday in terms of that matchup. Howard lost to Jackson State that Saturday, and then they come back. That was an 81-74 game. Then they lose to Texas Southern 79-78. So Howard can be thankful that they're not playing in the SWAC tournament, as they didn't fare well in that matchup. But They're a 4 seed here, and they have a chance. They take on Norfolk State. I can see them finding a way to get it done as they played relatively well. Obviously, they gave Norfolk that early loss in terms of that matchup when you talk about Norfolk State getting it done 65-71 on the road, very close game. I watched that game that would have gave Howard a share of the championship. Norfolk State still would have had the number 1 seed in terms of it would have came down to the point differential. I would say that game was close until the end. Norfolk being at home, they pulled away and won it big, but it was closer than what people see on that, with Norfolk winning 77-58 to get it done in style. So I'm fascinated to see if both of these teams can find a way to get to the semifinal. This is a key matchup to keep your eyes on. Whoever wins that may find themselves cutting down the nets in terms of the championship game, regardless of who they see on the other side of the bracket. We got to give a little kudos to North Carolina Central, one of the deans of HBCU basketball, not just in terms of the MEAC, Coach Wooten. Fascinating. I got to go to the opening round game before COVID when they had the first time that the MEAC faced up against the SWAC. At that time, FAMU was still part of the MEAC, so your allegiance was on that side, obviously. But that was fascinating. At that time, Texas Southern was coached by Davis. They got it done in that matchup, and they had won the regular season and basically the tournament. Norfolk was 2 or 3 and kind of got hot and made a run and got it done in the MEAC. But at that time, both teams had won like 3 consecutive tournaments. And so I had named them the teams of the decade, respectively, in terms of 1 and 2. And it goes back to the NIA days, and really before that, when you had the District 29 in NIA that featured all the HBCUs playing together in an 8-bid tournament to see who would get the bid to go into the NIA before they open it up, as they were just desegregating, which goes back to the 50s. And so I was fascinated and played that up. It was unfortunate. It was before I got a chance to link up with y'all with BCSN, because you all would have loved that and ate that up, and we'd have talked about it all week long. But I thought it was a great time to kind of play back that history. So it wouldn't surprise me if you found a way that both of these teams get hot coming in the tournament and finding a way to get it done, and then facing off in the opening round game again to see the new turn of the century, to see who was the big bully of the block. Texas Southern got it done against Central at that time, but we got to keep our eyes on these Eagles and Coach Wooten. He knows how to get his team ready for a tournament. They've kind of turned it as they've been down the last couple of years, but coming in as that number 2 seed, they're looking really solid. And so don't be surprised if you have another classic Norfolk State, North Carolina Central matchup in the finals. Last year, I saw that game in the semifinals as I was down in Norfolk watching that game. And it gave me a real indication to let you know just how much there is a great atmosphere in terms of the MEAC. So I'll kind of size this up to get back to your opening question when you talk about who was doing it the best. I'm going to give a slight edge. This is going to surprise everybody because most people are going to talk about the CIAA, and it is right there. But I'm going to give the edge to the MEAC, particularly now that they've closed down and it's only 8 teams. You see that there's just not that much difference between the team, which makes this tournament even more healthy and dangerous. Obviously, I love a lot about the Baltimore, certainly the CIAA, but I'm going to give a slight edge to MEAC getting it done. The CIAA does a lot of things right in terms of marketing to all the segments that you have out there. They do it in terms of the students, engaging them with a lot of official parties associated with the CIAA, and Fan Day, which also gets the local individuals involved. You talk about the fact that they have corporate sponsors in terms of the corporate suites. They also have their own area for the presidents. And then they have a behind the court, some people would say end zone, where you have those fans that are next level fans that want to be a little closer, where they dine and can see the games on the court while they eat. almost as if they're in their suites at these tables on the floor. And then obviously you have your general admission. So I love a lot about the CIAA, but it's something to be behind the scenes. The MEAC really has taken it to the next level. They have the esports, so they get students involved. They have internships from all the different schools where they're doing social media. They've taken social media up to the next level in terms of what the MEAC is doing. The city is bought all in. They have a mayor's gala on Thursday where they have the food and everybody that's associated with the teams, presidents are all involved there. They have the bucket seats, recliners on the sideline for fans. They have obviously a good group of fans. All the pep bands come in terms of the MEAC. And so when you put all that together, and this year, they actually ran commercials that you go out hyping the MEAC tournament where they got a professional going in. So what they have done in the MEAC to take it to the next level has, for me, bumped them over the CIAA in terms of that. The third one, I would say, would be the SWAC, but they're much further down than the CIAA and the MEAC. It's something about the basketball country being able to do it over the years over that. And then fourth in line is the SIAC. I haven't gone to what is now the GCAC. That will be my next on the list. And what I'm hearing them preparing and getting ready to do, I can see them easily jumping over the SIAC, even though you see the SIAC trying to make moves in themselves. I'm hearing that tournament is on the move, so that might change my mind. And if it's going to where I've heard it is, and I won't break the news because that's just not what we do on our side. We allow those clients to tell us if they want to keep it in confidence, we hold it there. But if it's going where I'm hearing, it will be interesting to see if they can hold ground or even bump the SWAC. But I'm also hearing the SWAC is in the bid, potentially moving their basketball tournament, which can make some things intriguing. If those two conferences move in the direction that I'm hearing, they could be finding a way to chase down the CIAA. That's how big these potential moves could be over the next year. So that's my order of finish for now. Like it, leave it, love it. I understand, but I can say this, that I have had the chance to go to all 4 of those 5 tournaments. I opened it up. So I'm not talking about what I've read or what I've heard. I'm talking about what I've seen, viewed, touched, had an experience to be a part of why I ranked the conference the way I ranked.
Good stuff, Doc. AD, close it up. Final thoughts about the MEAC tournament, the men's side, and then the question on the floor. Which tournament is at its apex right now? Best tournament right now, Drew?
Apex Predator, the MEAC. They do
wish I had
a little dinosaur that everybody got mad at. MEAC, what is it? MEAC? Is it? Maybe it's an Apex Predator. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't going to bring that up.
Look, I'm just excited that these tournaments are here. I'm also saddened because it's the end of basketball season. You know, only 2 men or 2 women are going to be playing after this week when it's all said and done. On the I know we're not talking about the mid majors here on this particular show, but you know, I'm probably only going to have 1 to 2 mid majors to root for after this weekend also. So, you know, it's bittersweet this time of the year. As far as the conference tournaments, and I'm gonna talk about this quickly from 2 angles. I have not been to every tournament like you have, Dr. Cavil. So I'm going to talk about this from my living room and from what I've seen and experienced on television, computer, internet, iPad, everything else. CIAA is the standard. That's the unicorn that everyone is chasing. Is the CIAA when it comes to the tournaments. The one thing that the CIAA is doing better than the other 4 conferences is the CIAA network. That's that one centralized place where you can go and start watching your team or start peeking in on some of the other teams that are hot throughout the conference, both on the men's and the women's side. And I think that build up from the CIAA network to the CIAA tournament, and then them having everything on the full letter this year, you know, that from a fan's point of view is the unicorn that the other four conferences are chasing. Now, for my number two, because I have been a part of it for a couple of years, both as a fan, member of the media, and actually having worked the tournament. The GCAC, soon to be HBCU AC, and Bryan can attest to this. We've done that tournament in 2 different cities, and the hospitality that conference had with its particular tournaments was second to none. Both in Jacksonville and New Orleans, where I experienced it, especially the people on the beach in Jacksonville, they know how to put on a doggone tournament. They know how to put on an event down there. Dr. Faison and his crew, they know how to put on an event. And don't think Xavier was too far behind them, but it was just something extra special about that. So, with that being said, obviously, have not experienced a MEAC yet, so I'm going to have to reserve judgment on 3-4 between the MEAC and the SWAC. But unfortunately, pulling up the rear is the conference where I have found a lot of my success, which is in the SIAC. Can't find a steady home. Can't find a steady arena. And this is not something that is recent. This is something that has happened over 20, 30 years. We're going to play it on campus. We're going to play it off campus. We're going to play it in somebody's civic center, somebody's arena, whatever. Can't get it right. So I'm really interested to see what Dr. Holloman has up his sleeves. And yes, the three of us know the potential site for next year's tournament and a potential long-term deal. And long-term in this means like 3 years for everybody, so that we know we're not talking 10 years. Long-term is 3 years for these conferences. Long-term deal. And I'm hoping to see if that's the move that the SIAC needs to be able to take this thing to another level, because I think it is. The location is easily accessible. There's plenty of other entertainment outside of the basketball tournament. Close to that arena, first class arena. I'm really interested to see, but the SIAC could have the best tournament in the world next year. They're so far behind right now. I don't think they move out of last place for a couple of years. It's going to take we have to make sure that that's not a one-off when it comes to the SIAC tournament before we can move the SIAC out of last place.
Well said. Fascinating stuff there. Again, good discussion. Hopefully, we heard from a few of you guys in the chat rooms. Walter Harley said CIAA is the best. You guys in the chat room, if depending upon if you've been to multiples, and again, also you got to think about what it looks like on TV, because for a lot of us, we are in how we watch it on TV and consume it matters. And I think I'll kind of agree with Doc, kind of how I have seen the MEAC from a television perspective. I got to give the television perspective of the MEAC maybe it's, I don't know, the energy, the fact that you do have the energy just looks a little different than what you get from the SWAC tournament, what I see from even, now the CIAA on championship day actually looks pretty good. But I'm talking when you start thinking about those semifinal games, it's a little bit different. So I would tend to think from a television perspective, I might go see MEAC slightly over CIAA, but hopefully soon. Next year, it's on my bucket list to kind of see if I can get to a couple of those, and maybe we can have this discussion next year, and let's see if we still kind of think the way we think about these tournaments. All right, that's going to do it for this show. Heavy show. Thank you guys for consuming. Thank you guys for watching. Even if you came back on the replay, you may have left and came back, or if you can always go back and check all of our comments and thoughts on the MEAC men and women, and the SWAC men and women. Got to thank Charles Bishop, Charles Edmonds for coming in and joining us earlier. All the tournaments in the MEAC and SWAC, those games begin on Wednesday about noon. And then they'll go 4 games on Wednesday, 4 games on Thursday, quarterfinal action. Semifinals are on Friday. Speaking of Friday, that's also when the NAIA tournament starts, the national tournament. Hopefully you caught our show last night, and we did a deep dive breaking down all of the HBCU teams, the 9 teams, 4 men, 5 women that are playing. And then, hey, you got to give some props. When does Division II tournament start? Because they announced those late last night.
That will also be on Friday.
Division II begins on Friday as well. Miles women are the 8 seed in the Southeast. West Virginia State, an 8 seed in the Atlantic. Fayetteville State women, a 3 seed in the Atlantic. On the men's side, you've got Clark Atlanta, the 6 seed in the Southeast. West Virginia State, a 7 seed in the Atlantic. Lincoln, PA, an 8 seed in the Atlantic. And then Benedict, an 8 seed in the Southeast. So 3 women, 4 men from the HBCUs participating. And I know Doc and the guys will get a chance to go through that a little bit more on tomorrow night's show. Make sure you tune in 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, right here on the Black College Sports Network. The Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Doc, Charles Bishop, maybe Mike Washington, maybe A.D. Drew. We'll see who the third member is. That's all a fascinating television to kind of watch. Appreciate you guys. Hit the thumbs up, the like button. Appreciate everybody for coming in. Drew, I want to give you the last word there.
Yeah, just today is the unfortunate anniversary of my sister passing, so I just had to shout out, love you, fam. The Core Faith Walker Foundation. Google it. If you got some dollars, please give to it. They are very good dealing with healthcare issues. Let me put it back up: healthcare issues and women's rights in the state of Missouri. So just wanted to shout that out. She passed away 2 years ago on this date.
Well, continued prayers and condolences to you and your family. I know what it's like to go through that process and still grieving, I'm sure, in different ways you and your family are. So prayers to you and your family. Doc, any last words here as we close?
Only last word I would say is, as I said, if you can't get to the tournament, certainly understand different things, priorities may make that not the case. But now you have a chance to watch these games. All these games will be streaming. So as we come down the stretch, as A.D. Drew said, that if you're not careful, you're going to be out of basketball season. And while we do have baseball, track and field for those, particularly those folks that are a fan of those sports in the SWAC and the SIAC, this is really the final stretch when you talk about the CIAA and the MEAC in regards to basketball. They do have track and field, obviously, from that perspective. But baseball is not there. So get out and go to these games if you're in the local area. If you can, in driving distance, and you want to get the chance to see semifinals night, or if nothing else, the championship Saturday, find your way there. But most importantly, turn on your television, turn on your streaming, make sure you check out these games. And as you get going, find a way to slide over and see some of the NIA playoffs, NCAA Division II playoffs to support your HBCUs. So make sure you tune in and check them out. Check out the network because we'll have your updates. If you're not able to see it live, you can come check us out, and we'll certainly give you those updates to see who is surviving and continuing to dance as they chase the golden slipper, if you would, glass slipper for some. Cinderella does dance this time of the year, so let's see what happens.
Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. Please share the show, share the network, wherever you're watching, however you consume, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or maybe on the podcast via the BCSN Pod Zone.
And we could officially end this podcast because Chuck Hunt did check in from Monroe, Louisiana.
Amen. Yeah, we saw that. Good job, Chuck. Make sure to go back and check the replay, Chuck. We missed you at the beginning of the show, but thanks for jumping in. Thank you to everybody for jumping in with your comments throughout the show. For all of our guests, Charles Bishop, Charles Edmonds, of course, Dr. Cavil, and AD Drew. I'm Bryan Fulford. You guys be well. Have a good night. Enjoy the great week of basketball, and good luck to all the teams that are dancing or hoping to go dancing this week. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Travel light. We'll holler.
But earmuff, you stay on hard.